Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is the third part of What If Naruto Was the Black Dragon of Apocalypse in Fairy Tail. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe and also go and support the author, link in description. Crocus, the beautiful capital city of Fury, was truly a beautiful sight to behold. It was by far the largest in the entirety of Fury. The sheer size is something that few will ever forget. The city itself was built on the foundation of a valley with several mountains surrounding the town, giving the place a very distinct look to the other cities of Fury. In the center of the city is the palace of the king of Fury known as Mercurius. Crocus is known for two huge attractions that bring people year-round to the capital. The first are the beautiful flowers that adorn every street and the numerous gardens located around the city. Crocus has such a wonderful reputation for its flowers and gardens that it's been given the name of the flower-blooming capital. The second great attraction is to the west of the city. The huge stadium known as the Domus Flow. It's here that the GMC are hosted every year to determine which guild is the number one guild in Fury. As we take a closer look in the city, we find the members of Team Natsu having finally arrived in the capital to achieve victory in their guild. Well, that would the case if half of the team was on the ground dead tired. I really don't feel confident about all this. We're not even sure if Ultir's spell worked right. Gray remarked. I do feel that my magic did increase, but my entire body still feels sore. Lucy retorted. The only two members not on the ground were Wendy and Urza. Wendy's sweat dropped and Urza shook her head in disappointment. Honestly, have any shame? She asked. Lucy and Gray just sweat dropped in response to that. How are you fine, Urza? Lucy asked. I bet she had second origin from the start. Gray said. That would make so much sense. Lucy responded. Wendy giggled before looking around at the vast palace around her. The capital really was huge compared to Magnolia. This place is so big, even for a city. Wendy commented. Happy nodded. It's a lot bigger than the Daedalus Kingdom. Carla said. You guys finally made it. Someone shouted. Everyone turned to see Master Makarov with Asuka on his shoulders along with Jet, Droy, Levi, Biska, and Alan. Let's get on with this event already. Ha 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 ha. We'll show them the power of Fairy Tail. However, some of the passerby heard the statement, and couldn't help but laugh. Did you hear that? Fairy Tail. Where? Them. They actually plan to participate again. That weak guild that forever claims last place. PFT ha 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 ha. Natsu glared at the laughing folks. What was that? He growled. Wendy also glared at the people laughing at the Fairy Tail members. If there was one thing a Dragonslayer hated, it's being mocked. Ahaha, you should just pack it in and go home. Yeah, pack your bags and get out of here, you trouble-making losers. Grr. Why those bastards? Natsu growled as the air around him began to heat up. Wendy was also growling in silent anger as her eyes flashed red with slits. However, both stopped their train of thoughts when they felt a hand on their shoulder. They turned to see a stern Urza looking at them. Calm down, both of you. I understand that both of you are frustrated by their comments, but don't let them get to you. Both Dragonslayers sighed as they got their anger in check. Makarov then spoke up. Urza's right. Let them comment and insult us all they want, but once we take the crown, no one will be putting us down. Right, Team Fairy Tail. Natsu, Gray, Urza, Wendy, and Lucy all smirked in confirmation. How were these five chosen to be Fairy Tail's team? Well. Flashback, Magnolia Town, Fairy Tail Guild. Hot. Was the collective shout of Team Natsu. What do you mean no one has returned to the guild? Natsu shouted. Makarov sighed. It's as I said, Natsu. Laxus, Guildarts, Mirajan, and everyone else that went on a training trip have not returned, so I will have to make do with the five of you. He looked at the five mages, gauging their reactions. Natsu and Gray looked really revved up. Urza looked slightly concerned, but even she was anxious for the games. Lucy was understandably very worried. While she was not the weakest mage in the guild, she could hardly equal the raw power of the others. But, she has been through a lot during her time in Fairy Tail, and he believed she could handle it. However, he was slightly surprised by Wendy's reaction. She did not look scared or anxious. She looked giddy to be participating in the games. It seems Naruto gave her a huge boost in confidence. Now the question is, what did he teach her, and would it be enough for the games? He contemplated. He guessed he will see the results during the actual games. Meanwhile, Wendy was shivering in excitement. She was worried that she may not be chosen, because of her young stature, but now she was given a chance to everyone what she's made of. Hell yeah. And this will be a perfect opportunity to get our boy Toy to fall even more in love with us. I can already see the steamy fun we can have in the very near future. Dark exclaimed perversely. Luckily, Wendy was able to hide the blush that was appearing on her face. Shush you. Save that pillow talk when we cross that bridge. Oh, don't worry, I will. And when we do, all bets are off, ha 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 ha. Laughed Dark. Wendy just sighed. Dealing with a perverted subconscious can have its toll on a little girl's mind. Thankfully no permanent damage has been yet. At least she hoped so. She looked and saw Lucy was very nervous about participating in the games. She needed to get out of that funk, or else it may affect how she does in the games. Lucy. Wendy called to get the blonde's attention. The celestial mage turned to the young dragon slayer, who gave a comforting smile. Don't worry too much, Lucy. Both of us have been through a lot since we joined Fairy Tail, right? Lucy nodded. All of the enemies we faced were miles beyond us and yet we survived and won. If we've gotten this far, we can get through these games as well. Just believe in yourself and your spirits. Lucy looked shocked that Wendy of all people was giving her the pep talk, not that she wasn't grateful. It's just odd since it's usually the others that gave the pep talk. Her dad must have done one hell of a job to get her like this. Thinking about what she said, she realized she's right. Ever since she joined Fairy Tail she has been so much and nearly died so many against so many enemies. Aragorn, Phantom Lord, the Tower of Heaven, the Thunder Legion tribe, the robotic Dragonic, the Edels incident, and the disaster that was Tenro Island. She went through hell in all of that and still managed to stay alive and help her friends survive. If they could get through all that, why would this be any different? Lucy smiled gratefully to Wendy. Thank you, Wendy. That means a lot. Before giving her a hug that the Sky Maiden happily returned. Everyone smiled at the adorable scene. Alright, leave the mushy stuff until after the games. Then we can celebrate with all the hugs we want. Natsu said. Everyone laughed before everyone heard the master say. Although it would have been better to have Gildarts, Laxus, and Mirajan. With them victory would have been assured. Hey! We heard that. Natsu and Gray shouted, while the three girls' sweat dropped. Flashback end. Anyway, after managing to get on their feet, the other members began to explain what the games have been like for the last 7 years. The GMC is always a different competition every year. Alzak said. It was sharpshooting the year I didn't participate. Biska said. It was a race the year after that. Jet said. The games always change each year. Levi explained. I've read the rulebook a few times, and there are 3 rules that always remain consistent. Team Fairy Tail listened on intently to the rules. Firstly, the guildmaster can't participate in the games. Ah well. Makarov replied. Secondly, only mages with the guild's insignia are allowed to participate. That seems to be an expected rule for anyone to follow. Gray said. Also, the events for each day will remain secret until the day of the games. Everyone nodded at the rules. All of them seem very simple to follow. Wendy noticed that Levi had not mentioned the special rule for the games this year. She or the master probably want to keep it hidden so it can a big surprise for everyone. Dark said. Wendy mentally agreed with that assessment, since the master was one for the erratics on occasion. Oh. Levi suddenly spoke, which gained everyone's attention. What is it, Levi-chan? Lucy asked. There is one more thing to mention at the very end. All participants in the games must be at their designated lodgings by midnight tonight. Midnight? They all questioned. It's just like the Cinderella story. Lucy said. We still got plenty of time. Natsu exclaimed before grabbing Lucy and Happy. Natsu, Lucy, and Happy then began running off. We've come all this way to the capital city of Fury, we might as well hit the city and explore it while we have the chance. Natsu screamed happily with Lucy blissfully following and Happy shouting, Aye sir. Everyone also split off with Julia and Gray going one direction, Levy and the other members going another, Wendy and Carla going to explore in another direction, and Urza walking off to the lodge. Lodgings for each team. Mumbled to herself. What could be the purpose of all of us being there by midnight? Will there be some type of preliminary round before the games start? Also that malevolent power, Jelal spoke of appearing each year, what could it be? Urza continued to contemplate all this as she arrived to her team's designated lodgings. She quickly relaxed before sitting down and reviewing the rules again with the wind-reading glasses. 1 hour before midnight. Wendy and Carla were exploring the garden around Castle Mercurius. Wendy was enthralled by the beauty by the variety of flowers around the castle. Even Dark was enjoying the sights. Hey, even a perverted subconscious can enjoy the small things in life. Carla, this place is amazing. I can spend a month exploring the gardens and would never get old. I agree. I wonder what type of person the king and princess are like. She replied. Me too. I wonder if he has a mustache. Wendy asked. Probably. The Exceed replied. Unbeknownst to the two, they were being watched by a small black imp. It chuckled evilly before moving in on its target. Wendy, I think it's time we have a talk now that we are alone. Carla said with a serious tone. Wendy gave her partner a blank stare. Talk about what? She asked, knowing full well what this is about. Carla scowled at Wendy's obvious obliviousness to her. I am talking about your father, Wendy. Spitting the word father like it was venom in her mouth. This caused Wendy to glare at her Exceed with dark grumbling in her head. Seriously. She's still on with this crap. I mean Dad is not a saint, but this blatant disrespect towards him, and it's starting to piss me off. Dark snarled, getting sick and tired of Carla's attitude towards their father. Sigh, I know. I am just as frustrated as you, Dark. She has been like this ever since she first met him, and has gotten even worse when we found out he was my dad. Now she's made it a mission to push his name through the mud. Dark soft. Our partner still thinks we are some weak, insecure child that is frightened of her own shadow. She needs to learn we are growing up and needs to accept that, because let me tell you, if she even tries to stop our alone time with our boyfriend and girlfriend, the gloves are coming and I will put her in her place. Dark roared in Wendy's head. Wendy sighed, knowing her dark half is right. Worrying about her well-being is one thing, but blatantly treating her like glass and not helping her stand for herself would only cripple her in the future. Something that could cost her life or one of her nakama. Wendy just sighed again before returning her attention to Carla. Look, Carla, if you have something to say, just say it. Carla seemed to get even more annoyed. I want to know exactly what you did with that stranger during the 3 months I was away. Wendy looked annoyed. First off, he has a name, Carla. So you could address him by it. Second, he isn't some stranger, he's my father. Carla was starting to get angry. That man has done nothing to earn the right to be called that. What has he done for you? Visit you on occasion, make some small talk, a few gifts, and then he just leaves. We never hear from him again until he visits again. Isn't that a little suspicious? Wendy rubbed her temples, feeling a headache coming from this conversation. Carla, my father had a very good reason for not being there for me. And considering the alternative, this was his best solution at the time. Carla just scoffed. Good reason. Is that what he told you? Then do tell, what reason could that be? Wendy looked back at her. Yes, he had a good reason. I won't tell you, because I promised him I wouldn't. Carla looked angrier. And do tell, how do you know he wasn't lying? This time Wendy looked angry and she could feel Dark was getting sick of this conversation. Trust me, I know that he wasn't lying since he couldn't. You need to trust me on this. Carla was looking enraged. Trust. You expect me to trust you? Ever since we came back, you have been keeping secrets from us. Heal before you never spoke of your father. But now, you spend 3 months with him and you can't shut up about. How do we know he's not brainwashing you right to get info on Fairy Tail? Wendy had to sweat dropped at that ridiculous claim. Besides the fact that my dad knows every secret of Fairy Tail already since he practically raised the person who founded the guild, we have nothing to offer him. Before she could retort, she felt a drain on her magical power. Before she knew it, she was on her hands and knees panting heavily. She looked over to see Carla in the same situation, although her condition seemed worse due to her smaller reserves. Wendy, what's happening to us? Carla stammered out. Wendy struggled to get the words out. Our magical power is being drained. Alright, who the fuck is screwing with us? Dark roared in anger. Wendy was also getting angry and quickly tried to pinpoint the assailant and was shocked to feel 5 magic signatures. Wendy glared in the direction that the sources were hiding in. I know you're out there. So reveal yourselves, you cowardly bastards. Wendy language. And don't antagonize the enemy. Wendy just gave her a look that screamed, are you kidding me? And the look was mirrored by Dark. Before she could retort, she heard some chuckling before 5 shadows appeared in front of her. 4 were men of average height with cloaks covering their faces. The one in the middle was not concealing his identity and looked very weird. He quite tall with blue skin and long nose. He had black beady eyes that were starting impassive at her. The same imp from before was on his shoulder with a sinister grin on its face. Look at what we have here, boys. It's the Dragonslayer girl of fairy tale. Look at her, she's just as cute as her pictures portray. One of the cloak men said. What do you men want? Carla screamed. The men all chuckled. Our master wanted to give your guild a message. But you know, it would be a shame to leave her like this. Maybe we can have some fun with her. Looking at Wendy with a lustful look that made her skin crawl. Oh hell no. I refuse to let any of these fucking sickos touch us. That is reserved for our man and girlfriend. Wendy, let me out. Wendy glared hatefully at the sickos in front of her. Her father warned her about such vile men in the world and to be prepared to fight and even kill some of these men. This made Wendy grimace mentally. When she was learning to become a shinobi, her father warned about what it means being a ninja. They were agents of the shadows, always hiding in plain sight, and striking when the enemy was at their most vulnerable. Their jobs were not for the faint of heart, because many of their actions will cross lines that many others would not be willing to do. The biggest one being killing. Normally it was illegal for a mage to kill another mage. However, the Magic Council have made a decree that a mage that is S-ranked is allowed to kill, however there were several protocols that had to be followed. Besides that, killing was only tolerated for non-S-rank mages if the person killed was a wanted mage with a bounty that said killing was allowed or an actual Dark Guild mage. If these regulations weren't followed, the mage would be persecuted until they were captured, tried, and imprisoned. However, killing was never a simple matter, regardless of the reasons behind. It was one of the reasons Naruto was so hesitant to teach her about being a shinobi. Because it meant he would have to teach her how to kill. The reason he was hesitant to do this was because he did not want to her into a mini-him. One that lived to kill and cause misery to anyone that gets in her way for the sheer thrill and enjoyment of it. The last thing Earthland needed was another Acnologia running around. But Wendy was a stubborn girl, that's for sure. She knew what being a shinobi meant, but she still wanted to learn about being one. Both the good and bad about it. It was tough, but she pulled through and passed her father's expectations. But this was different. This was not training, nor a simulation. This was a real-life situation with her life and purity at stake. She knew there were vile men that do what these men wanted to do on a regular basis. They were the scum of humanity that had no mercy or kindness in their hearts. Nothing would change them, there was no redemption for them. Even if they were captured and sent to prison, it would change nothing. They would just escape and harm someone that won't be as prepared as Wendy was right now. She steeled herself for what she was about to do. Suddenly several magic seals appeared around the 5 goons. From the seal, 5 ethereal light blue knights rose from the seals, each with a sword in hand. All of them were around 10 meters in height. Think the knight constructs from RWBY. Well. Looks like Pops decided to lend a helping hand. Guess he felt something was off from our crystal link. Wendy smirked internally. Time to use the training her father and Dark taught her. Dark. She muttered to her other self. Yeah, she replied back. Get ready to give me the boost to tear these bastards limb from limb and to send their master a message. A message of not messing with anyone from fairy tale, especially a Dragonslayer. Dark smiled evilly. Oh hell yeah, let's show them not to fuck with us. The men were about to get into a brawl with the knights when they all felt a dark presence cover the area of the garden. This caused all of them to freeze at the dark and potent energy they were feeling. It felt even darker than anything their own master could produce at his best. Everyone then felt another pulse of power and felt it coming from the source of this energy. When they turn to source, they are shocked beyond belief that this power is coming from Wendy of all people. Nobody, including Carla, who was barely conscious, could believe that Wendy could produce such a vile power. You know, she said in a dark tone that made a shiver crawl down everyone's spines. The worst thing you can do is poke a sleeping dragon. Her voice got much more malevolent, scaring her audience even more. When she looks up at them, all of them took a step back at what they looking at. Behind Wendy a dark and purple aura was forming around her. It was taking the form of some monstrous creature with 9 tails flapping about. The creature's blood-red eyes were glaring down at the puny ninjas. Carla was looking at Wendy in fear before she finally lost consciousness. Even the dark imp trembled in fear, unable to understand what it was seeing. All the imp knew was taught it was dangerous and it reminded him too much of his true master. The imp and its blue campion quickly disappeared in a magic circle. The others were about to do the same until they were caught by Wendy and several wind clones. All of them were glaring at them. Oh, you don't. You don't get the right to run away after threatening to violate me. Now then, let me hear you scream. She roared as she unleashed her onslaught on the bastards. The last thing those men saw were crimson eyes as they screamed into the night. Unknown to the group were 2 that watched the entire scene before disappearing. 30 minutes before midnight. Urza was glaring at her friends that barely made before midnight. It's almost midnight, where the hell have you idiots been? She exclaimed with authority. Lucy was nervously laughing and said they had been preoccupied with some unexpected events. Natsu and Happy looked extremely angry for some reason. Gray looked completely exhausted. I had to deal with an annoying situation with Juvia, he said. Juvia had dragged him around the capital to see some of the sights. He would admit that he did enjoy spending time with her, even if she can sometimes be really crazy, especially when it involved him and another girl she saw as another love rival. However, when he saw Leon flirt with her, he felt really bothered by. He knew why, but he was still too stubborn to admit it. Natsu and Happy seemed to get more pissed off by the question. The reason? Well, during their trip around town, they met with the dragon slayers of Sabretooth, Sting and Rogue. And as expected, they did not get along at all. The 2 superior dragon slayers claimed they were the 3rd generation, and that even Acnologia would tremble at their power. Natsu retorted that he felt their magical power and compared it to Acnologia. It was nothing but a drop of water in an ocean. It would take Acnologia 1 sneeze to rip them to shreds, and thinking they'd take that dragon on was a suicide mission. This pissed the 2 off, but then they gave arrogant smirks and claimed that they were true dragon slayers because they killed their dragons. This shocked and appalled Natsu that these 2 boasted proudly that they killed their parents. He decided to walk away and dragged Lucy and Happy away before he did something reckless. Natsu did have some last words for the 2. He said when they face each other, he would show them who the real Dragonslayers are. They smirked in acceptance of the challenge. And here he was still pissed off about those smug bastards. Happy was pissed, because one of the Exceed with Sting, Lecter, kept insulting him and he wanted to prove that damn cat wrong. Urza just sighed in exasperation at the antics and told them to wait for the tournament to release those frustrations. Then the door to their room opened and in came Lysina and Elfman. Natsu's mood did a complete 180 when he saw the youngest of the takeover trio. Lysina! He exclaimed as he rushed in and wrapped her in a big hug. Lysina just laughed and returned the hug from her best friend and secret crush. Everyone smiled and laughed at the antics of the 2, except Lucy. Lucy for some reason felt off when she saw Natsu hug Lysina so affectionately. She felt a pit develop in her stomach, but decided to ignore it for the time being. The takeover siblings explained they just made it back from their training trip and were pumped for the games. Everyone looked at the clock to see only 15 minutes remain before the games start. Everyone was starting to get worried about Wendy. Where could Wendy be? Urza asked. Could have gotten lost. Natsu asked. Oh no, don't tell me she ended up with the wrong people. Lucy exclaimed, imaging Wendy's scantily clothing with black sunglasses. Gray just sweat dropped. Do all writers have such an overactive imagination? Guys, don't worry so much. I am sure she's just running late. Lysina said. Suddenly the door swung open and everyone turned to see the person they had been waiting for. Hey Wendy, what took so long? The question died in their throat as they saw the condition that Wendy was in. Her hair was a mess with several strands falling in front of her face, her dress was in tatters with several areas with dirt, grim, etc. But the most galling thing visible was her arms that were covered in blood with several droplets falling on her feet and dress. She cradled Carla in her arms, who was unconscious, and did not seem to be stirring from whatever caused her condition. Wendy? Lucy asked fearfully. Wendy looked up and everyone almost flinched by the cold look that she was giving them. It was almost unnatural that such a sweet girl could give such a dreadful look. Oi, dial that glare down a bit, girl. You scaring the shit out of your friends. Dark said to Wendy. While she may not be as close as Wendy is to her friends, that doesn't mean she wants Wendy to be all alone and only have herself to talk to. That would be way too dark and depressing, even for her. Wendy seemed to snap out of whatever trance she was in and shook her head a bit. When she looked back, everyone was relieved to see Wendy back to her normal self. But that begged the question, what happened to her? Hey everyone, sorry for scaring you. She apologized as she bowed. Wendy. She looked up to see Urza looking at her impassively. What happened to you and why are you covered in blood? Wendy froze, not wanting to give the details to her, knowing this might change how they look at her. Oi, show some backbone and explain exactly what happened. Trust me, they won't abandon you. Wendy sighed as she prepared for the conversation that was coming. She walked over and placed Carla in the bed before looking back at her friends. I was walking with Carla in the gardens around the castle when we had this huge argument. This got everyone confused. What could cause the two to have an argument? They were as close as Natsu and Happy. We had an argument about my father. Before you ask, the reason is because she has never trusted him. She always saw him as a worthless deadbeat that abandoned me for his selfish reasons. I never believed that and knew he had his reasons, which has always caused some friction between us. That doesn't explain the blood, Wendy. Natsu retorted. I was attacked by members of a guild in the capital. Why was this becoming a theme with her now? Blame Pops for giving us the gift of dropping bombshells. What? Everyone screamed. Yeah, when I was training with my father, he warned me that in the 7 years since Fairy Tail dropped in rankings, there are several guilds that have grown to have a vendetta against us. My dad believes one of these guilds is participating to humiliate and harm everyone in Fairy Tail. Everyone looked concerned at the news. What guild is that, Wendy? Lucy asked. Wendy sighed. My dad believes it's Raven Tail. Everyone's eyes widen at this. Raven Tail. They all shouted. But that's a dark guild. They would never show their faces here. Natsu said. Not anymore. Wendy responded. What? They all screamed again. You see, they became an official guild a few years ago. Why they never attacked us is up for debate. But my father believes he was hoping that the master and the rest of us would return so he can personally come after us. For what reason, I have no idea. And if my dad knew, he never made it apparent. All he did tell me was to not get near them and be very cautious of them. Everyone looked very disturbed by this. They knew tensions were high between the master and his son, Ivan. However, they never knew why. All the master would tell them is that his actions were a danger for the guild, and he had to excommunicate it. That was it. Not even Laxus would divulge any information, if he did know anything. However, there was a rumor that the falling out between the three involves the disappearance of Laxus's mother, however it was never looked into to see if it were factual. However, no one dare mention the woman, since it was a very touchy subject between Laxus and Makarov. Especially for Laxus. Last time his mother was brought up, Laxus sent to the poor bastard to the hospital for 3 months. However, all this did not stop Urza from forgetting their previous question with Wendy. Wendy, that still doesn't explain the blood, Urza said again. Wendy sighed, mentally prepared for what she was about today. I was getting to that before going off on this tangent. When we were at the garden, we felt our magic being sapped and 5 goons surrounded me. They said that this was their master's way of saying hello to Fairy Tail and to give us a message. I continued to feel my magic being drained, and then everyone tense at how quiet Wendy got, which made them dread what she was about to say. Wendy, what happened? Lucy asked. Everyone got even more worried when Wendy began to angrily glare at the ground, shaking in rage. The members wanted to get a much clearer message to all of you, and wanted to have fun with me. Wendy said as spat out the last words with venom. What? Everyone roared in rage. Everyone soon began to release their magic powers in tandem. Natsu was engulfed in red-hot flames, the temperature around Gray dropped several degrees, Lysina and Elfman were partially transforming due to their takeover magic, Lucy had a golden Arua around, and Urza had several cracks appear below her as she released a potent amount of her magical power in a crimson aura. All of them looked ready to go to war with whoever this master was. Damn the consequences. If they touched Wendy, blood will be spilled in extreme retribution. And if Raven Tail was the culprit, then nothing will stop from completely destroying them. Not Laxus. Not Makarov. No one. Wendy, did they do anything to you? Urza asked in a cold whisper that made even Natsu and Gray shiver despite their burning rage at the moment. Everyone released a sigh of relief when shook her head. I would never let those bastards touch me, and you see the result of me making them pay for that stunt they tried to pull. Everyone nodded. While they couldn't agree with her killing, the alternative was far worse, so they understood why she killed them. Urza was conflicted on the one, Wendy killed another human being. Not just one, but several. But those men were blaming to do deplorable things to her if she did not retaliate. So could she blame her for doing what she did? She shook her head. No, she couldn't. If she did, she would be a hypocrite, especially the blood she spilled when escaping the Tower of Heaven. However, she would have a talk with Wendy's father about this. She walked and gave Wendy a tight hug that she gratefully returned. She looked at Wendy with soft brown eyes. Wendy, I am not angry for what you did. I understand why you did it, but you know we will have to report this to the master. Wendy sighed before nodded. Yeah, I know. Before anyone could respond, they heard a huge explosion from outside, and they all went to the window to see a man with a pumpkin head in the middle of the city. The Grand Magic Games had begun. Guild Team Quarters. Team Fairy Tail was getting ready to go into the stadium, and all of them feeling anxious for the games to begin. Listen to that, all that cheering. The crowd is really into the games. Urza said. I'm getting kinda nervous. There will be so many people. Do you think all of them are mages? Lucy said. Gray shook his head. Yeah, I doubt all of them are mages from Fiori. Probably, a large majority are regular civilians from the city and around Fiori to see the games. He replied. Natsu muttered in confusion as he looked at his clothes. Anyway, why do we all have to wear these clothes? Lucy giggled in response. The master thought we should all be wearing matching color scheme. I think it's cute. I am definitely saving it for future use. Urza said. Yeah, me too. Gray said, but Lucy's sweat dropped. Maybe you should try wearing them before saying that. She muttered. Wearing these clothes makes me feel manly. Elfman cheered with an open short-sleeve shirt. Lysina giggled. Calm down, Nay-san. Save that excitement for the games. Elfman slightly calmed down. We're just lucky we found something that actually fit you. Lucy commented amusingly. Seriously, how did you get so buff in just 3 months? Gray asked. Elfman cackled manically before bumping a fist in the air. Nothing is impossible for a man when he puts his mind to it. I fought tooth and nail to get this body. I'll show you all the training I went through was worth it, and to everyone else. I'll show those guilds what it means to be a real man. He shouted boisterously. Lysina just giggled before tapping Elfman on the shoulder to get him to calm down a bit, which slightly worked. He really did work really hard to get as strong as he did. Even Mirane was surprised at how much Elfman was pushing her. You'll all in for a surprise once he gets out there on the stage. Everyone smirked in anticipation. Elfman was one of the toughest members in the guild. They knew they were in for a good show if Mirajan was impressed by him. Ano, everyone. Everyone turned to see Wendy tugging at her uniform. She looked at everyone with a noticeable blush. Is this a bit much? She asked timidly. Nonsense, Wendy, you look cute in that. Lucy said. But this doesn't really cover a lot, even with stockings. I feel like this a little too revealing. Nonsense, Wendy. I agree with Lucy, you look cute in it. Urza argued. Listen, giggled. Wendy, the crowd is just gonna love you. You'll be like our little mascot. Wendy blushed in embarrassment. I am not a mascot. I want to be taken seriously. Everyone just laughed, which made the girl pout, muttering, mean friends, which caused everyone to laugh again. Come on, it's not that bad, and look at the bright side to this. Dark Wendy said. What's that? Our future boyfriend plaything will be watching us, and with us wearing this, he'll pay extra attention to us. And if we play our cards right and make the right moves, he'll be crawling to our bed in no time, ha ha hey hey hey. Dark perversely said. Wendy turned atomic red from what her other half was suggesting. Dark. I told you to keep that pillow talk when he becomes our boyfriend and if we get a girlfriend as well. First off, it's not if we get a girlfriend, it's when. Second, I never said that will stop me from taking the opportunity to tease you. And I gotta say it's funnier every time as I see your resolve crumble little by little. I wonder what I will need to do to finally destroy any and all restraint you have before you just jump them and make them yours. Ah, that would be a good day, ha 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 ha. Wendy was soon reaching new levels of red from the conversation before closing the link with Dark and did her best to calm herself down. Wendy. She looked up to see Urza and everyone else finally calmed down from the laughing and now looking at her in concern. Are you sure you can do this? We won't think any less of you if you want to sit this one out. No. Everyone took a step back from Wendy's outburst. Wendy blushed a bit from her shout, before calming down and looking at everyone. Guys, I appreciate you worrying about my well-being. I really do, but I can do this. I can participate in the games. I promise you I will be alright. Everyone sighed, but nodded. They all knew Wendy was quite adamant about participating in the games. She didn't participate in the preliminary games, because she was still recovering from her experience. After they passed the preliminaries for the GMG, they went to Makarov to explain what happened. It went as anyone would expect. Flashback. They did what? Roared Makarov, while Perlyuzuka looked just as pissed off and horrified. Natsu and the others had just returned from making it to the next part of the games, although they barely made it to 8th place with little time left. Wendy was out of her dirty clothes, as Lysina helped her get a new set of clothes after she cleaned off all the blood and grime off of her body. Now she was sitting to the side of Master with Carla being right next to her with her arms crossed. Those horrid men were going to do unspeakable things to Wendy, it's a miracle we avoided that disaster. The White Exceed said. Wendy. Wendy looked to see the Master looking with the calmest demeanor he could muster. Are you sure? There is no way to connect those bastards to Raven Tail. Wendy sadly shook her head. Goman Master, but that's not possible. After I killed them, their bodies went up in flames, and by the time I put them out, only ashes remained of their bodies. So there is no way to connect them to Raven Tail. Makarov sighed before looking at the other members of Team Fairy Tail along with Lysina and Elfman. What do we do, Master? Urza asked. Come on, Gramps, let's go kick those Raven bastards into the next century. They need to pay for what they tried to do to Wendy. Natsu angrily replied. He still was on this mindset to beat the shit out of Raven Tail for their actions against one of their nakama. By the looks of his team's faces, they were feeling the same way. Makarov sadly just shook his head. Unfortunately, Natsu, there is nothing that we can do. What? Everyone shouted, except for Wendy, Urza, and Perlyuzuka, since they knew why Makarov refused. Master, you can't be serious. Lysina said. Those bastards need to pay for even trying that on one of our own. Gray said. As a man, I can't accept them getting away with this injustice. Elfman said. Please tell me you're not serious, Master. Lucy said. Like hell I'll let this go. I'm not gonna stop till I roast those bastards. Natsu shouted. Wendy, having enough of this, stood and addressed everyone. Enough. Wendy roared. We don't have time for any of this crap. You really think Raven Tail is stupid to not take precautions so none of this is traced back to them? You really think anyone will take us seriously? They'll think we're trying to get sympathy from anyone. So can we let it go for now and think of our next move to get those bastards caught? Please. Wendy finished before huffing from her long rant. Everyone stood still as they gawked at Wendy. They have never seen her raise her voice at anyone before. Hell, they never seen her shout at anyone before in such a manner. Talk about a shock to the system. Wendy blushed at the shock at not only the silence she had caused, but the looks she was getting from everyone. How long do you think this gonna keep going, Dark? Probably for a while, maybe till Pops reveals himself. Anyway, props to you for shutting them up. Cammy, I appreciate the love, but the shouting was getting annoying. Wendy sighed before looking at everyone, before Makarov decided to speak. Wendy's right. Finally said, still recovering from Wendy's rant. We need to think up how we will hand this in case they try something like this again. Agreed. Everyone finally nodded. Wendy. Said girl looked at the master. Did you father tell you anything about why Raventail will be after us? Wendy sighed. He told me it's because of bad blood between your son, Ivan, and you and Laxus. He said he didn't know the definitive reason why though. Wendy said. Makarov sighed. He never thought his son's hatred for him would push him to attack a child that had nothing to do with this. He supposed he was too naive for his own good. But he'll deal with Ivan when the time comes at the appropriate time. He looked back at Wendy. Well, Wendy, regardless of how father knows what he does, he has given us vital info on who to be weary of in the games. Tell me, will he do anything after Raventail has attacked you? Makarov asked as he was generally curious and scared about what Acknowledge's reaction will be on the attack on Wendy. Wendy cupped her chin on her palm and got a thoughtful expression on her cute little face. Well, the city is still intact, so that's some good news. Cue sweat drops and faceplants from everyone in the room. I will say my father might make a more active role of keeping eye on me and the guild. Since in his own words, we have an uncanny skill of attracting trouble. Cue Team Fairy Tale and the reserve members scratching the back of their heads. Makarov just shook his head in amusement. Very well. We will do the same. I want all of you to always be in pairs of 2 or more. Don't under any circumstance go anywhere alone. I will relay this message to everyone once they arrive back. Understood. Everyone nodded. The master then turned his attention to the brunette of the team. Now Wendy. He said as she looked up to the master. After that traumatic experience, I normally wouldn't let you participate in the games. Wendy looked like she was about to protest, but Makarov stopped. But I can see this means a lot to you, so I will compromise with you. Wendy was listening intently. You're allowed to participate in the events of the first day if you desire to participate or if you're chosen, but you will rest on the second day, and then allowed to enter the third day's events. The same if you don't participate the first day. Now does this work for you? Wendy nodded happily before hugging Master Makarov. Thank you, Master. Makarov chuckled before patting her head. Now all of you go get some sleep. You all have a big day tomorrow. Everyone soon walked out, before Natsu was the last one that hasn't left. He began walking out before he stopped. Gigi. Yes, Natsu. He asked, curious on what Natsu wanted to say. Natsu looked back at the master with the fiercest glare he could muster. I don't care if he's your son, Gigi. If he tries to touch Wendy or anyone else like that again, I will burn him until his ashes scatter into the winds. I don't care if I have to go through you and Laxus to do it. With those last words Natsu left. Makarov sighed again before he started to cough violently. Perlyuzika quickly brought him a glass of water. Don't push yourself, you old coot. Makarov chuckled. I still got some fight left in me. Now I need to contact Gildarts and to give him an update on everything that happened. Please bring me that communication lacrima. Flashback end. The team was now walking forward with its 5 members. Urza and Lucy were at the far ends of the team, Gray and Wendy were in the inner ends and Natsu was in the middle carrying their team flag. As soon as they appeared in the field, nearly everyone began booing and bemoaning the team. Every was dumbfounded by this. Yeesh, they are really getting into the booing. Muttered Gray. I knew we were under unpopular opinion, but this is a little ridiculous. Said Wendy. No kidding. Replied Dark. Med Lucy. Urza clasped her hand on Lucy's shoulder. Keep your cool, Lucy. Lucy smiled gratefully. Urza then pointed to a certain section of the stands. Lucy and everyone else turned to see all the other members of Fairy Tail cheering for them. They could see a banner that said, Fairy Tail Victory. Hooray! Hooray! Fairy Tail! The members of the stand cheered. All we need is the cheering of our friends. Everyone on the team nodded, until they noticed something, or rather someone. Hey guys, look at that, Natsu said. No way. Lucy said. Is that? Grace said. Could it really be? Urza said. It is, Wendy confirmed. By this point everyone on the stands turned to see what the team was looking at. To their surprise, sitting on the edge swinging her legs back and forth was Mavis Vermilion. Hooray! Hooray! Fairy Tail! She cheered happily. Master Mavis! Everyone shouted. She turned to them with a big smile on her face. I came to cheer everyone on. It gets boring being in the guild by yourself. She said. But what about, Makarov began. Don't worry. Only people with the guild mark can see me. Plus, do you have any idea how boring it is not having anyone to talk to and be stuck on an island? Needless to say, that ended any argument of her being there. The team was also sharing their own thoughts on the matter. It kinda reassuring to have the first master watching us. Natsu said. Even as a spirit. Grace said with a sweat drop. No one ever said we were normal. Wendy retorted. Now welcome onto the stage, in 7th place of preliminaries are the Hounds of Hell's Army, Quattro Cerberus. From one of the gates, 5 figures can be seen coming out of the gate. The team consisted of 5 men in their late teens to early 20s. The first one was to the far right. He is a young man with shoulder-length green hair that covers his left eye, green eyes and red goggles on top of his head. He wore a long green jacket with a fur-trimmed hood over a white and red ringer shirt and blue jeans with brown shoes. This man's name is Lubbock. The next person to Lubbock was a tall, muscular young man with blue eyes and black hair that he usually wore in a combed-up, heart-shaped pompadour donned in a black shirt with green shoulders, chest armor and white pants with black boots, and on his back was a short silver sword with a chain dangling from the hilt. This man's name was Bullet, and was the one carrying the flag. The third person in the middle was a fairly muscular young man of above average height with short dark blue hair and eyes. He wears a blue leather jacket and a red scarf with an anchor on it. The scarf is said to be his symbol of justice. Under that is a white shirt with a single blue line down the middle. He also wears a pair of gray jeans with a belt and dark blue boots. This was team's current leader, Wave. Like Bullet, Wave also had a black short sword with a chain dangling from the hilt. The next person on the team was a tall, muscular, fair-skinned man with straight black hair, which is slicked back and gathered on the back of his head, where it is kept in a bun, hidden away by a white cloth with ruffled edges secured by a similarly colored strip, a haircut which was popular in ancient times. He has slanted eyes marked by dark lines, with black pupils circled by lighter irises, each bearing 5 irregular black forms below it with the central pair of forms being larger than the 3 on the outsides, and which are topped by black, arched eyebrows. He also appears to possess sharp canine teeth. Hanging from his ears is a pair of light brown earrings, whose shape is reminiscent of a gourd. This man's name was Bacchus. The last person was a dark-skinned, relatively muscular young man of average height with large, thick, brown hair that juts out wildly in every direction. This last man was Agil Ramal. Wild. They all shouted. Coming in 6th place, we have the all-female guild, Mermaid Heel. From the next gate, 5 beautiful females came out. The first one is a young, slim, large-busted woman, with long, straight black hair that falls to the middle of her back. Wears an elaborate blazer with gold lining, and a large collar, which is open to reveal a collared shirt and red tie underneath. The cuffs of this jacket are tucked into a pair of white wrist-high gloves. On her legs, Kagura wears a pair of black tights, which are tucked into a pair of knee-high boots and sit under a short white frilled skirt. She also wears a white headband with a white ribbon tied at the middle in a bow, pointing straight up. This was the captain of the team, Kagura Mikazuchi. The next person was wearing a black cloak with pink highlights concealing her face and was currently holding the flag. Next was a petite young girl with orange-brown hair, which is tied in 2 braided pigtails on either side of her head. She has a childlike and innocent look to her, possessing very large, almost round grayish-blue eyes and freckled cheeks. She is wearing a black t-shirt with a white collar line under a pair of calf-length grayish-blue overalls, covering her torso and reaching up below her armpits, held up by shoulder straps. The overalls are plain except for a series of simple, small round motifs going down the side. Beth's outfit is completed by a pair of red sandals for her feet. This is Beth Vanderwood. The next female was a chubby woman with tan skin. Her attire contains Polynesian elements. She has black, curly hair, sporting a plain beige headband. She wears a necklace of an animal teeth, a dark blue loincloth with a white finish that bears the crest of mermaid heel right at its center, and a short blue top, which leaves her large belly hanging out when at a larger weight. Her arms are adorned with brown fringed sleeves attached by maroon bands. She also wears sandals that tie around her ankles and slip onto her foot. This young woman's name was Risley Law. The last member of the team was a beautiful woman with large breasts, and her most noticeable feature being the two large gold-looking horns protruding from the sides of her head and pointing upwards. Upon her head is a white band which separates her hair, framing her bangs from her hair below the band. Worn upon her forehead is a small circular symbol with a small dot on the inside and surrounded by several dots around the top. Tied around her neck is a small white-colored strap. Her attire consists of a very revealing beige-colored leopard-printed kimono, bearing the decorative marks on her shoulders. The kimono is wrapped around her torso with a thick, decorative yellow ribbon that ties behind her back, and her outfit is complemented by thigh-high socks that reveal her heels and toes. This woman's name was Sela. There's an actual guild like that? Questioned Happy, while Macau and Wakaba were drooling at the sight of the girls with hearts in their eyes. That is the best idea for a guild ever. Shouted Makarov, with everyone that heard him, sweat dropped. They seem like a powerful team. Yeah, this got very interesting. Ohio Mermaid Heel. Wendy greeted cheerfully to the guild. Everyone looked at Wendy strangely. The weirdness increased when said guild responded to the cheerful greeting. Ohio Wendy-chan. They said in the same affectionate tone. Wendy, I didn't know you knew the members of the guild. Well, I don't personally know them. But we are acquainted with certain people. The team decided to question her later when they the time. In 5th place, we have the azure wings that sparkle in the darkness, Blue Pegasus. The members consisted of the Trimans, and the 5th member in a bunny costume, concealing his appearance. Everyone do your best, screamed Jenny. In 4th place we have the goddess of love and war's sacred destroyers, Lamia Scale. The team consisted of Jura, Leon, Toby, Yuka, and a young girl in her mid-teen years. Why the hell are you only in 4th place? Are you idiots even trying? Screamed the guildmaster, Uba. Sorry Ba-chan. It's because I was so clumsy that we took longer than expected, kya. The girl was saying before tripping and letting out a cute yelp. Leon just facepalmed. Geez Sharia. The now named Sharia blushed in embarrassment. Goman, Leon-san. Everyone began commenting on the other teams. Quattro Cerberus looks like it'll be tough. Indeed, Bacchus and Agil are not people that should be underestimated, and neither should the other members. Blue Pegasus doesn't look like it changed much. Gray said. Although there's a person I have never seen before. Lucy commented as she saw the bunny-suited person. Probably another pretty boy under there. Gray retorted. Ha ha ha. Maybe there's another Ichiya under there. Natsu joked before being smacked over the head by Urza. Natsu, don't ever make that joke again. Do you hear me? She roared at the terrified Dragonslayer. Hi. He croaked with everyone looking at him in pity. Hey, anyone recognize that girl from Lamia Scale? Lucy asked, trying to diverge Urza's attention from Natsu. No, although she looks like that love girl. What was her name? Shelly, I think. Gray said. Leon looked at the team in amusement as he heard their comment. This is Sharia. She is Shelly's cousin. Leon said. She's very strong. Toby said. My love is not as strong as Shelly Nichan, though. The now named, Sharia said. I was complimenting you, idiot. Toby shouted. Kya. Goman, Toby-san. Sharia cried as she cowered from Toba's shouting. Calm down, Toby. Yuka said. Sharia then felt someone was looking at her. She looked around until her eyes landed on her certain Dragonslayer looking at her. The two girls continued to look at one another, each one taking the other's appearance for what seemed like an eternity. Sharia could feel her pulse increase as she looked and saw more things she liked about the petite girl. She's so cute, she thought, before finally realizing what she was doing, turned her head down so no one could see the blush rising to her face. What the hell was I doing? The moment I saw her, I couldn't stop looking at her. It felt like we were the only ones in the stadium. My heart won't pounding in my chest. She complimenting why she was acting like this until she had an epiphany. Is this what Shelly Nichan mean? Is this love at first sight? She thought gleefully. She looked up to see the girl also looking away from her, until she looked back and both saw a healthy blush on the other's face. Wendy glowed even more red before looking somewhere else. She's so cute. I definitely need to see where this will go. Sharia thought in glee. It seems the love girl has found her target. Speaking of target, Wendy's head was steaming from what had transpired a few moments. She was doing her best to calm down, but she was failing miserably. Why did I do that? I couldn't stop looking at her. Wendy screamed in her head. Ha ha ha. Looks like we found our girlfriend. And by the looks of that blush, she interested. Dark said. You did this, didn't you? Nope. You did all that on your own. Oh gods, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, look at the bright side. And what's that? She seems just as interested as you are. And did you see that body? We are in for a lot of fun. Well, she is beautiful. Wendy thought. She continued to look at Sharia discreetly. And she has amazing assets bouncing on both ends. Yeah, wait, damn it. Ha 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 ha. Got you. Wendy finally decided to cut her chat with Dark. Thankfully, everyone seemed too engrossed with their interactions with the other teams to notice her staring. Next in third place is the Midnight Raiders, Raven Tail. Wendy just glared at the team, along with the other members of her team. Raven Tail team just looked smugly at them. You got lucky escaping us, little girl. You won't have that luxury again. Alexei said. Wendy just growled as her eyes turned into crimson slits. Urza put a hand on her shoulder to calm her down. In the stands, Ivan was looking down at the arena with an evil grin. Father, I have waited for this day, patiently. Up in the stands, the other members of the guild were also glaring at the new team that entered the stadium. Makarov had explained the incident with Wendy, and every single one of them wanted to get back at those bastards, but their master told them to let it go for now. Surprisingly, Romeo seemed to be the most adamant about getting back at Raven Tail. His reaction was very similar to Natsu's reaction, although with Romeo there seemed to be something else, but was not sure what. Makarov decided to file that for later. The remaining two teams will come out to the stage. This confused the crowd as they knew one of the guilds was Sabretooth, but they had no idea who the guild was. I wonder who that other guild is. They have to be pretty strong to get one of the tough spots. I wonder if this has anything to do with that malicious aura that Jello warned us about. Well, the first of the last teams is now approaching the stage. Everyone waited patiently until they saw the Soluts approaching the stadium. Well, this is a surprise, the next team is. Everyone was surprised at who was coming, none more so than Fairy Tail's team. Wendy and Makarov both had smiles on their faces. Welcome to the stage, Fairy Tail Team B. That's right. A second team of Fairy Tail had appeared. In the team were Gildarts, Laxus, Gajiel, Juvia, and Mistogan. Wait. What? What the hell? Natsu screamed. Juvia. Gray shouted. Wait, Laxus and Gildarts. That's not fair. Lucy screamed. Hold on. What the hell is Mistogan doing here? Gray and Natsu shouted. Wait, don't tell me. Jello. Urza asked. Mistogan puts a finger to his lips and, shish. Seriously. Shouted Natsu and Gray. Well, I didn't expect that. Wendy commented. Juvia-chan. Leone said, while Sharia's head perked up. She then gained a huge smile as she saw the looks between Leone, Juvia, and Gray. I sense a love triangle in the air. She said amusingly. Wonderful, Fairy Tail has two teams. That means twice the fun. Hibiki said. What the hell is going on? Natsu finally screamed in frustration. To explain the confusion most of you must be feeling. In this year's games, a special rule has been implemented. All teams are allowed to have more than one team. This rule was made to give an advantage to the team in last place to give them a handicap. The judges were discussing the fairness in this, and if Fairy Tail would exploit this rule. That was until Natsu declared it did not matter if they are in the same part of the same guild or not, he would take down anyone that gets in his way. Gajil answered saying they wouldn't want it any other way. No. Mistogen. What are you doing here? Urza asked. Your master is a rather understanding person. When I told him about my situation with my guild and the games, he consented to this novel of an idea. He replied. I thought you said you couldn't near the even grounds. Hey. That was before I thought up this idea. This is still against the rules. You're not a member of the guild. That is not technically true. As Mistogen and myself are the same person. Laxus then came up and put an around Mistogen. Relax is a festival, isn't it? Laxus said. Right, Mistogen. He asked. Exactly Urza. Mistogen replied. Also watch it. Mistogen was not all that talkative, got it? Laxus warned the disguised mage. Got it. He replied. Anyway, Laxus did the master tell you? Urza began before being interrupted by Laxus's face darkening along with Mistogen's. About what those sickos were gonna do to Wendy. Yeah, the whole team knows. It took a lot of convincing to stop Mirajan, Gajil, and myself from storming that guild. Laxus explained. Natsu and the rest of us were feeling the same. Mistogen, do you feel anything from that malevolent force? No. I feel absolutely nothing. To be honest, it makes me feel rather anxious. Another thing. Wendy believes her father may become more active in observing the games after that incident. Laxus and Mistogen nodded. We'll let him do his thing, and hopefully we'll get to talk to him eventually. Laxus said. Yes, I have some things I want to ask him. She said before going back to her team. Meanwhile, there was another discussion in the stands. That person in the mask doesn't have our guild mark. Mavis said. Ah. Makarov, Wakaba, and Macau said. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Makarov chanted again and again. I told him this was a bad idea. Macau said. Wakaba replied. No way the Shodime master would agree to this. Wakaba replied. But, which causes everyone to perk up at what Mavis was about to say. I sense no evil from him. Instead, I feel the same heart that comes from every member in the guild with our crest. It's rather fascinating. She explained. Well, that's a bit complicated. Although you could say he technically was a member. Makarov said. So that is Prince Jalal's counterpart. Lily said. Is he strong? Mavis asked in a curious tone. Of course he was a member of the 10 Wizard Saints. Makarov said. Mavis remained silent for a few minutes before speaking. I'll allow it. Everyone's eyes widen in shock, relief, and joy. Really? They asked. Mavis just nodded before giving them a dazzling smile with her eyes sparkling. For Fairy Tail's victory. Everyone's sweat dropped. Yup, she was definitely the founder of Fairy Tail. Now everyone welcomed the guild that came in first place and currently the number 1 guild in Fury, Sabretooth. The team from Sabretooth consisted of Sting and Rogue, along with 3 other the members of Fairy Tail had not met or recognized. The first was A.A. Slender, well-endowed young woman with short, light blue hair and fringes framing her face. She wore a blue rose ornament on the left side of her head. She dons a cloak clasped together by a star-shaped clip, with feathery protrusions that cover her chest, shoulders, and mid-back, over her blouse and shorts. The cloak flared at her feet, where it is divided into flowing sections secured by ribbons. This was Yukino Agria. The next was a lean young man with medium-length spiky hair and is easily distinguished from the other members of his guild by the mask he wears, which obscures the lower half of his face. This was Dobengal Hayabusa. The last member of the team was a pale-skinned, very massive and heavily muscular man, possessing an extremely well-built torso, and matching arms. He has long, spiky, shoulder-length light green hair. 2 long spikes fall on either side of Orga's face, framing it. He keeps his hair held in place via a plain black headband over his forehead. His eyes are shown to have white irises. This was Orga Nonagir. And here they are. Wendy commented in a serious tone. The twin dragons of Sabretooth. Natsu said as he looked at the team. I look forward to this, Natsu-san. Sting told Natsu. What are you look at, punk? Gajeel growled at Rogue. Gajeel. Rogue said as he turned his head away. Now that all the teams are out, we can now explain the games for everyone. For the next 5 days, there will be 5 days that make up the games. The games consist of one consent, followed by several battle between the teams. The contest will be a secret until the day of the games and each member must pick one member to participate in the event. For the battles the member fighting and who they'll be fighting will be random. The rules are simple, the team with the most points at the end of the final day, will be crowned the number 1 guild in Fury. Now let the games begin for the contest of the first day. The contest is called Hidden. May the teams please choose a member to compete. Lubbock went out for Quattro Cerberus. Go wild, Lubbock. His team shouted with him giving a peace sign before walking forward. Eve went for Blue Pegasus. I got this. Beth went for Mermaid Heel. I'll let Yota go, but be careful Beth, and remember what our mistresses told us. Kagura said. Yes ma'am. Beth replied. You're up, Narpending. Make them know the wrath of Raven Tail. If that girl comes out, show her no mercy. Alexei said to the violet-skinned mage. Dobengal walked forward. I shall go out for Sabretooth. None one seemed to object to this choice. Make sure you end up in first, Dobengal. Sting told him as Dobengal nodded. Got it. Should Yuka or myself go, since we are the shortest? Sharia asked her teammates. I am not short. Yuka retorted. Leon shook his head in amusement before walking forward. No, let me go, we should grab victory from the start. Leon said as he went to the center of the arena. Oh, if Leon is going, I should go. Gray said, before something grabbed him from behind. He turned to see Wendy holding him back. What's up, Wendy? Gray, let me go instead. Huh. Gray and everyone else shouted. Why? I get you want to compete, but why should you go, Wendy? One, I'm small, so if the point of this contest is hiding, I can do it much easier than you. Plus the training I went through will be perfect for this. Finally look over there to Team B. They turned to see that Juvia was chosen for Fairy Tail B. Gray paled at the sight. If you go out there, can you tell me you'll handle Juvia crush on you and Leon trying to get you jealous with your weird love triangle drama? There is no love triangle. And I am not jealous. Gray shouted in complete shock that Wendy of all people was saying this to him. He was not jealous of Leon flirting with Juvia. All he got from Wendy was a deadpan stare. Keep telling yourself that. She retorted. Gray continued to look back and forth before finally sighing. Alright, you handle this, Wendy. Just make sure you win. Gray said as he finally relented. Wendy nodded with a smirk. You've got it, she said as she walked to the arena. Gray was left in his own thoughts as his team gave him confused and curious looks. You gave in rather quickly. Any reason why? Lucy asked. As she expected Gray to fight more than he did against Wendy on who should go first. Gray just shrugged his shoulders. Besides the reasons she gave. Come on, you can't all not be just a little curious on how stronger Wendy has gotten with her dad. I want to see what she learned. Plus I want to see why she said she was confident to handle this contest. He explained with everyone nodding at his logic. And with the members chosen, let the first contest begin. The members of each of the guild reached the center of the stadium where the announcer Pumpkin is waiting for them. Wendy Chan. Juvia called to the Bluenet. Wendy smiled at her fellow Bluenet. Just because we are friends. Don't expect me take it easy on you. She warned. Wendy smirked in anticipation. I wouldn't want it any other way. Leon then walked up with a smirk of his own. I expect great things from you too. But I will not be holding anything back. Especially for Juvia Chan. Au tilde, was all Juvia could say. Wendy just sweat dropped. Guess she's not used to seeing this from the other perspective. Calm down, Juvia Chan. You can handle this love drama later. Wendy said as she tried helping her fellow guildmate. Wendy turned to see Beth waving to her. Do your best, Wendy Chan. Our mistresses said they'll be watching this contest. Wendy's eyes widened before getting a new fire in her eyes. Now she had even more reason to do her best. Hi. I expect the same from you, Beth San. Beth smirked in return. Narpending then walked up to Mr. Pumpkin. I have a question. Everyone was listening in. We still haven't been told what kind of contest we are participating in. Regardless, wouldn't having two teams give Fairy Tail an unfair advantage? Any response was cut short by the key being released. The two turned to see a very annoyed Wendy glaring at the Raven Tail mage. Everyone became tense at the sudden increased pressure around them. None of the other mages, minus Beth, Juvia and Dobengal, expected the little dragon slayer to release such a noticeable force of killing intent. Wendy continued to glare until she felt Juvia tap her shoulder. Wendy got the hint before she sighed and released the pressure, but no one relaxed. Wendy then got an idea and gave a very evil smirk that made several people nervous. What's the matter? Are you scared, Juvia, and I may take the jump on you? She mocked. What? Narpending growled. If you want, we'll give you a handicap. We'll keep one hand tied behind our backs. Narpending was glaring hard at the two, while most of the other contestants were staring at Wendy in shock, because they never expected Wendy of all people to taunt her enemies. Lesson in being in a shinobi. If your opponent has a huge ego, exploit it to get them to screw up in your fight with them by attacking their pride. Dad will be so proud. Dark gleefully said as she wiped away a fake tear from her eyes. Dobengal then came up to speak. I don't see a problem with this. Besides, one can see this as an advantage for all us. Comrades can become a reliability if they are kidnapped and used as leverage against the other. Doesn't mean much to me. One more target to his won't change much. Lubbock said. I agree. Beth said. Keh. Narpending scoffed before casting one last glare at the Fairy Tail girls before returning in line. Dobengal then walked up to Wendy. Wendy cocked an eyebrow at him, wondering what he wanted with her. May I help you, Dobengal? She asked politely. He leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Wendy's eyes widened before narrowing them at a smirking Dobengal. I expect great things from you, Wendy-san. As he bowed to her. Wendy smirked in anticipation. I look forward to this contest against you, Dobengal. I want to see if you live up to your so-called title. Dobengal smirked, accepting the challenge. He liked the girl's attitude, something that he is not used to due to the workings of his guild. This was gonna be fun contest. Field open. Suddenly huge pillars of energy rose from the sandy ground. The energy then morphed the entire city. Holy shit, an entire city appeared. Happy screamed. What an incredible amount of magic. Makarov commented. I have never seen anything like this. Lucy shouted. To create an entire city. Just what kind of magical power would that take to perform? Jelal thought in amazement, but also some fear. Back in the arena, Wendy looked around to see that she was separated from anyone else. Alright, they split us up, now what? Is this where we play hide and seek? Eve said. Where should I hide? Lubbock commented. HMPH. Narpending said. I hope Wendy-chan is okay. Juvia said. There has to be more to this than just hiding in plain sight. Leon said to himself. In this game, everyone is IT. The rules are simple. All you have to do is find one of the other participants and land a hit on them. A successful hit will give you 1 point. But failing will cause a deduction to occur. One more thing to worry about. Suddenly there was a flash of light and hundreds of clones of the 8 participants appeared everywhere. You must figure who is the real participant and not a fake. Also note that hitting a clone will also cause a deduction to occur. Wendy smiled. So that is their game. Well, two can play this game. Very discreetly, Wendy created several clones to blend in with the other replicas. This is gonna be fun. Dark commented. Hell yes it will be. Wendy replied back. Alright everyone, you have 30 minutes. Let the first games begin. For the first few minutes, everything was quiet, but none of the audience were bored. In fact, they were on the edge of their seats, along with the other members of the team. Everyone was wondering who would be the unfortunate soul that would be the first one to mess up. Then the first screw-up occurred. Got you! Screamed Narpending as his forearm enlarged to 3 times its normal size before slamming it down on Wendy's back. Gah! Wendy! Everyone shouted in worry. Narpending smirked in victory. That should remind you never to mess with Raven Tail, brat. However, this moment of victory was short-lived as Wendy began to glow before she exploded. Ah! Narpending as he flung backwards by the backlash of the explosion. Wait, what? Everyone shouted in shock. Ho ho! Narpending believed to have the advantage, but Wendy Marvell seemed to turn the tables. And now she has gained the first point of the contest. Eve will make his own move soon enough. Jenny replied. Narpendig got enraged. How? I was sure that was the real one. He shouted. Then he heard some giggling around him, but couldn't pinpoint the location. If you would like to know what happened, I'll tell you. Once the replicas began forming, I created my own clones to blend into the group. They then created even more clones to spread out throughout the field. This surprised not only the contestants, but also the audience. Wendy can create clones. That was interesting skill. The best part is that these are a special type of clones. As you just felt, my clones are rather unstable for lack of a better term. One touch and then kaboom. Now all of you have to watch not only for my replicas but also explosions in case you mistake them for the real me or try to attack someone else. Oh my. Wendy Marvell of Fairy Tail just increased the risk in this game. How will the other contestants handle this new development? Holy shit, Wendy, that's amazing. Natsu said. Damn, that's pretty smart. She's made this game even dangerous for everyone else. Grace said. However, we all have different methods for sensing magical energy. One of them must have a way to know which one is the real Wendy. So the question is, how will she handle this? Urza commented. Be careful, Wendy. Lucy said. Well, things got more interesting. Never thought Wendy will be this clever. Laxus said. I'm sure she'll surprise even more. Mirajan said. She was with Team Fairy Tail B as one of her reserve members. Got that right, but I wonder if she learned this from her dad. Gajil said, curious, what did her father taught her for 3 months? She definitely changed in many ways, but how strong did she become? I doubt we'll see much of her skills due to the point of this contest. Mira commented. Relax, there's plenty of days to see her skills. So let's wait and see, we might see more than we can expect from her in this contest. Gildarts said. Not bad. Dobengal might actually have fun here. Sting said. I expect nothing less from the mistress's child. Kagura said. Indeed. She is truly skilled. Hopefully Beth can at least get us a good spot. Sela said while reading a book. Don't worry too much, ladies, Beth will show her skill. Risley told her teammates. Lubbock might struggle with this. Waves said. Don't worry too much. Lubbock will make us proud. Bullet said. Back in the arena, everyone had gotten back to blending in with their replicas. Wendy was walking trying to sense where the other contestants were. She managed to find everyone, except for Dobengal, Beth, and Lubbock. Suddenly, the ground began shaking before a voice shouted. Carrot missiles. Wendy had barely managed to dodge the missiles as they sailed past her. Beth came out, disappointed she missed, before getting serious and summoning a bunch of vines out of vegetables. Vegetable snare. Wind blades. Wendy's blades managed to cut all of the vines, but she was not able to hit Beth as she went underground again. Wendy, acting quickly, closed her hand into a fist, cocked her arm back, and slammed it into the ground. Wham! A very sizable crater formed from Wendy's attack and out came Beth looking a little dazed from the attack. The audience's jaws dropped in shock. Holy shit, that was some impressive physical strength. Back in the arena, before Wendy could take the opportunity to attack, she was ensnared in strong wires. Wendy tried to cut them with her wind magic, but surprising couldn't due to her position and the wires were coated in magical energy, making them even stronger and thicker than normal. Sorry little lady, but it'll take more than wind to cut my wires. From one of the intact ally ways came Lubbock. However, his victory was short-lived as he was slammed to the slide by an ice rhino. Feeling the grip loosen, the two girls get out of their holds to see Leon smirking victorious. I must admit, Wendy, I never thought you would be such a fun challenge. I hope you can show me more of this. Wendy smirked in retaliation. I haven't even begun to play. Before Leon could remark with a funny tort, a cry from above, all three to look up in shock to see a descending Juvia slam roundhouse kick into Leon's head. Juvia! Wendy shouted in shock. Before jumping back and narrowing, dodging a water attack from Juvia. Don't forget, Wendy-chan. I said I would not hold back. Water slicer. Air cutters. The two attacks collided, canceling each other out. Wendy was about to launch another attack before jumping to the side as several vegetables passed, but one grazed her arm. Juvia tried to move away, but sadly one managed to graze her cheek, giving Beth another point. Juvia, Wendy, and Beth all jumped as Lubbock came attacking them with lance projectiles. The lances then dispersed and turned into a long of strings wires that tried to capture them. Juvia and Wendy managed to dodge, but Beth was not so lucky. Juvia then sent a massive water nebula to the two, sending the two away. Juvia just landed on the ground before narrowing dodging an attack to her arm. She looked to see Wendy with a black bow in her hand. Since when could Wendy use a bow? She thought before creating another water attack at Wendy. Said girl pulled another arrow and fired, but once the arrow closed in on Juvia, the arrow exploded in a blinding flash. Juvia tried to cover her eyes from the blinding light, but she was too late. She then felt a slam to her chest and heard, "Tenryu no Kusho," as she was sent back into a wall. Juvia coughed some blood before looking up at Wendy in amazement even though her sight was still blurry. Team FTA, Fairy Tail A, was amazed by Wendy's performance so far. Holy shit. Wendy is awesome. Natsu shouted. I am impressed with her skills with a bow. Urza commented. Yeah, I wonder if her dad taught her. Lucy asked. He probably did, and it makes me wonder what else he taught her. Grace said. Wendy quickly moved when an ice leopard swiped at her. She quickly creates a wind blade to slice the ice leopard as it charged her again. However, she had no time to breath as she used her bow and wind sword to block two incoming attacks from blades of ice and water. Impressive, Wendy-chan. But I can't let you hurt Juvia-chan anymore. Wendy was about to retort, before she heard an annoying voice say, I've caught you fairies. Juvia and Leon were about to dodge when a sizable amount of energy was released from Wendy. Tenryu no Kaden. The three mages had no time to act as they were sent back by Wendy rotating shield. That guy again. Grace said. He only keeps going after Wendy. Urza said. Wendy finished her attack glaring at Narpending, having finally reached her patience with this idiot. Tenryu no Hoko. She roared as it slammed into the Raven Tail Mage and sent him flying to another side of the arena. Wendy was about to move on when she was hit by an ice rhino slamming her into the side of the building. Sorry, but I can't let you walk away like that without taking a hit. Leon said before jumping away. Wendy got out of her crater and was about to go back into hiding before she notices something was off. For no apparent reason it began to snow, which was oddity to not only Wendy, but also the other contestants. It seems that Eve-kun has started to make his move. Jenny said. I see all of you. Eve shouted. Juvia, Beth, Narpending, and Lubbock were all hit by Eve's surprise attack. Wendy managed to avoid the attack. Leon retaliated against, since he was immune to his snow magic. The contestants continued to go against one another for several more minutes, but Dobengal was nowhere to be seen. Wendy had been trying to find him everywhere, but the ninja had definitely disappeared. Where is he? He has to be somewhere he can track everyone, and also be able to attack all of us. That's when an idea popped in her head. She quickly makes a discreet dash for the tower until she hears a voice boom throughout the arena. This game has been fun to observe. It has been highly amusing seeing all of you one-up each other. The biggest surprise came from you, Wendy Marvell. But this game has gotten boring to watch. Everyone looked to find Dobengal at the highest point of the arena, the peak of a tower in the center of the arena. How the hell did I never notice him up there? Screamed Wendy in her head. He must have completely hidden his presence this entire time and waiting to make the right move. You've been strangely quiet today. I wanted to see what you could do without my help. I gotta say you've done a good job, but that bastard from Raven Tail keeps attacking you. Don't get me started on that bastard. You know how annoying looking out for that bastard and everyone taking advantage of it. I literally couldn't keep track of my points for a while, because of him. Oh, don't worry so much. You've done pretty well for this game. Although I will say that guy has been finding you way too easily. Stupid bastard has been probably getting help from his teammates outside. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. She was cut from her musings with Dark when she felt a large amount of magic gathering around Dobengal. She sees several blades of energy form all around him. Now then, competitors. Let's see you handle this. Star Blade Barrage. And with that several blades fired off and went off into several directions like falling stars. Everyone gets slammed by the attack except for Narpending managing to dodge the attack and Wendy using the Kaden to repel it. Narpending then makes a lunge to attack Dobengal. However, before he manages to land a hit, Dobengal manages to avoid it by disappearing in a flash of light. What? He screamed, while Wendy's eyes widen. Teleportation magic. She screamed before climbing up the building to the roof to get a better shot at the two. Did you really think it would be that simple to touch me? Dobengal said as he raised his arm as he appeared behind Narpending. His arm began to glow in magical energy. Know your place below Sabretooth. Shine slash. He brought his attack down as he slammed Narpending on the head sending him back to the stone ground. Amazing, Dobengal nearly got everyone with one attack. This is the power of Sabretooth. Chapati shouted. Dobengal landed on the roof before his eyes widened when he felt a large magical energy heading straight towards him. Arrow shockwave. Dobengal teleported off just in time as the roof he was on exploded from the destructive landing on it. Amazing. Such power, who could have that much power? The cameras turned to see Wendy on another roof with her bow in hand. Wendy Marvell did that. Wendy felt vein pop on her head. What the hell is that supposed to mean? She shouted in annoyance. The announcer felt rather sheepish at that, but before Wendy could say anything else Dobengal appeared behind Wendy and would have struck her with his sword if Wendy hadn't parried the attack with her bow. She quickly jumped back to create some distance between the two. She dismisses her bow and summons her two blades. This got the attention of the masked mage and every swordswoman that instantly admired the beauty of the blades. Now show what you can do, Wendy Marvell. Dobengal then charged forward with Wendy following suit. The two quickly clashed with Wendy's blades going against Dobengal's katana. The two went into a flurry of attacks against one another, each switching between offensive and defensive trying to take advantage over the other to get a strike in. But both continued to parry and counter each move the other made with neither one letting an opening in their stance to appear. The two moved back to the other sides of the roof, breathing slightly hard from the excessive attacks they had to made. Wendy was breathing slightly harder due to her wasting much more energy in the earlier stages of the game. Dobengal charged again and made a quick overhead that Wendy blocked with her blades. The two locked eyes as they tried to overpower the other, but they were at a stalemate at the moment. I must admit, Wendy Marvell, I never thought I would find another of my kind in these games. This confused everyone on what Dobengal could talking about. Wendy did not let her guard down. Your point. Dobengal simply smirked. Simple excitement to meet a fellow ninja in these games. A fellow what? Everyone shouted. Wendy's a ninja. Nin. So I am a ninja. What gave it away? She asked. The way you fight, your movements, mannerisms, etc. They all scream you have been taught how to be a ninja. Not how to be. I am a ninja. A shinobi. That is what my father sought to do when he taught me. But did you also learn what it means to be a ninja? The dark side of it. What it means to cross the thin line between light and darkness. This got everyone's attention. What did he mean by that? And why did the members of Fairy Tail feel a sense of dread from this conversation? I do. Was the only reply he got. Dobengal looked into her eyes and saw that she did. He nodded before disappearing again. Wendy couldn't sense him anymore. She sighed before also disappearing using her Fuepo, but not before sending a roundhouse kick towards Narpending that tried sneaking up behind her again. The contest continued as normal as the contestants tried to one-up the other. When the game was at its near end, Wendy denoting all her clones causing explosions all over the arena. She managed to get a few of members, raising her score just as the game ended. That's it for the first event of the games. Now the final scores are. Sabretooth 10p. Lamia Scale 8p. Blue Pegasus 6p. Fairy Tail A4p. Fairy Tail B3p. Mermaid Heel 2p. Quattro Cerberus 1p. Raven Tail 0p. All Lubbock barely made it. Wave commented. It's fine, this will make things more interesting. Besides, he still got us on the board. Bullet said. Well, that could have gone better for us. Sela said, but Kagura shook her head. Beth did her best, besides we got to see the fighting style of many of the wizards here. Besides we can make it up with the fights coming up. Wendy-chan was amazing, though I wonder what Dobengal meant. Mirajan asked. We'll have to let that go for now. Laxus said. Wendy. Team Fairy A screamed and gave her a group hug. Guys, you're crushing me. She laughed. Wendy, why didn't you tell us you were a ninja? Lucy asked. Teach me. Natsu shouted. Enough. Don't suffocate her. Urza commanded before turning to Wendy. Now Wendy, answer us. Wendy sighed. Well, my two-chan taught me, since he used to be one, once upon a time along with Okawa-sama. This surprised them as they didn't expect both of Wendy's parents to formally be ninjas, however, they still had one thing on their minds. Wendy, what did Dobengal mean? Urza asked, which made Wendy sigh again before speaking. I'm sorry, but I will talk about this somewhere private. This was not the time or place for this conversation. There would be a time and place for this conversation, and this was not it, where no one would hear. Urza and the others were disappointed, but let it go for now. Now let us move on to the battle portion of the day. The first match shall be Raven Tail Flare Corona against Fairy Tail A's Lucy Heartfilia. Me. Lucy shouted. Blondie. Flare muttered with bloodlust. Wendy sighed. Things were just never simple with Fairy Tail. Lucy looked anxiously at her opponent. The creepy red head of Raven Tail, Flare Corona. Lucy, you can do it. Show them the results of your training. Natsu shouted. Don't let your guard down. Gray warned. Be careful, Lucy-chan. Wendy cheered. We all have faith in you, Lucy. Urza reassured her. Lucy bit her lip in deep thought. They tried to hurt Wendy. During the first event, they only went after her. I won't forgive them, she thought. She turned to give her teammates a determined look. Leave it to me, everyone. I'll definitely win, she said confidently. Oh, Lily said. That's the spirit, Lucy. Happy cheered. The opponent is Ivan's guild. Be careful, Lucy. Makarov warned. Mavis hummed in thought. What's wrong, Showtime? Romeo asked. Raven Tail has tried to actively attack us twice. I am worried they will try something again, since their last two attempts have failed. I also wonder if he'll take an active approach if something occurs. She said. Everyone, minus Makarov, wondered who Mavis was talking about. Makarov was also wondering what actions Acnologia will take if Raven Tail does anything. Wendy had admitted that her father could have easily killed Raven Tail, so the question was what Naruto will do now. It seems that the two masters of the guilds have a father-son relationship. What do you think, Ujima-san? Chapati said. Well, if the two bear two different guild marks, that obviously says the relationship between the two is dead. The former council member retorted. May the two fighters please come to the front stage. Pumpkinhead shouted. The entire tournament arena is the battlefield. So may all teams go to their respective waiting area. The two mages continued to look at one another as Pumpkinhead explained the rules. The rules were simple. All matches will be 30 minutes. The winner receives 10 points, while the loser receives no points. If no winner is decided by the 30-minute mark, the match is a draw and both members receive 5 points. Understood. Flare continued to stare at Lucy like a creepy stalker. Blondie. 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 She continued to mutter in creepy low voice that only Lucy could hear due to their close proximity. Let the first match begin. Pumpkinhead shouted. Lucy, wasting no time, quickly takes out one of her golden keys. Open. Gate of the Golden Bull. Taurus. The celestial spirit appeared with a battle axe, ready for combat. Moo. He roared while charging at Flare. Flare hummed as she looked at the spirit in amusement before jumping up to dodge Taurus's attack. Scorpio. Lucy shouted as the scorpion celestial spirit appeared. Oh yeah. The new spirit shouted. Sandbuster. Scorpio shouted. Flare responded by entangling her hair and let it flow freely. Her hair then swirled in front of her and actually blocked the Sandbuster. What the hell? Grace said. Her hair extended. That's her magic. Natsu yelled. What will you do, Lucy? Urza said to herself. Come on, Lucy, you can do this. Wendy said. Lucy did not seem fazed by this, and then called to her spirits. Taurus. Scorpio's sand and your axe. Taurus looked at the sand and immediately understood Lucy's thinking. Muke. He said. Flare and the audience were surprised when Taurus raised his axe and the sand began to swirl around the axe. Flare's eyes widened, feeling the fairly large magic coming out of the combined attack. Let it rip, Taurus. Scorpio shouted. Sandstorm axe Aldebaran. Taurus slammed his axe downwards and several tornadoes of sand erupted around Taurus. Gua. Flare shouted in pain as she was sent flying by the attack. Blondie. Flare growled. Hair shower wolf fang. Flare shouted as her hair swirled forward and merged together in the form of large rabid wolf that wanted to take a bite out of Lucy. Her hair turned into a wolf. Sharia said in shock. That's some weird hair. Yuka said. More like creepy hair. Toby said. You're all being nosy. Jura said to all three. Leon just looked at the man with a small amount of sympathy. Back on the battlefield, Lucy was prepared for this. She dismissed her other two spirits before taking another key out and shouting. Open. Gate of the giant crab. Cancer. Another portal opened and Cancer came out. If it's a haircut you need, Lucy. Leave it to me, Ebby. Cancer said as he chopped and cut the hair wolf into pieces as the false animal cried in comical agony. My hair. Flare shouted in shock before glaring at Lucy. She dug her hair into the sand and grabbed the two by their ankles. Oh no. Lucy cried before being lifted to the air along with Cancer, who had his arms bounded to keep him from cutting her hair again. The two felt pain as Flare slammed them together. Lucy flinched as she felt her forehead get bruised from the impact. Lucy quickly dismissed Cancer before the two were slammed together again. Flare was not bothered by this as she raised Lucy high into the air and then slammed her hard into the ground. Lucy coughed up some blood and could vaguely hear the sound of her teammates shouting her name. She lifted her head to see Flare's sadistic smile. Lucy glared in defiance. She will not let her teammates down like this. Before she could do anything, she was slammed again by Flare. Eat that, bitch. The crazed redhead said to the blonde mage. If that's the case, two can play that game. Lucy said before removing a handle from her skirt clip before pouring energy into it and creating a tendril of blue and yellow magical energy. It was an energy whip. Try my fleuve d'étoiles. She shouted as the whip wrapped around Flare's arm. Damn you. Flare growled. The two looked at each other in defiance, neither willing to back down from their stalemate. The two yanked hard and both were sent flying up and both then fell to the ground. Lucy quickly got on her knees glaring at a shocked Flare. There has been little time to breathe in this battle. The battle between the father-son guilds. Battle of the female mages. Neither is willing to back down. Fairy Tail seems to have an advantage. Jenny said. Looks like the celestial mage has this match. Risley said. Don't be too sure just yet. Seela said. Lucy flinched and looked to see that her boots were shredded and her ankles had burned marks. No serious injury, but still painful to bear. My boots. She muttered. She got up and slowly, but painfully removed the boots. My sunset hair, to damage me this much. She muttered before her eyes glared at Lucy in insane hatred. She rose up and growled at her. Blondie. She roared before sending her hair in the sand again. Lucy looked around, waiting for the hair to pop up. But for some reason, her didn't pop up. What's going on? Why is she not attack? Lucy thought to herself. She looked at Flare who was giving her a sinister smirk. She then discreetly pointed her finger to the stands. Lucy looked confused before turning and seeing at the fairy tale stands, a tendril of hair rise behind Asuka-chan. Lucy paled. Asuka-chan, she was about to warn before her mouth was covered by Flare's hair. She was raised up and slammed into the ground. Don't make a sound. That's an order. If you don't want anything to happen, then you'll listen like the good bitch you are. Lucy glared hatefully at her opponent. Dirty, rotten, cheating bitch. She shouted in her head. For the next few minutes, Lucy was slammed up and down, side to side with no sight that it would stop any time soon. Lucy, what's wrong? Urza shouted. Why is she not fighting back? Gray shouted in confusion. Lucy, come on, you can do this. Elfman shouted. Fight back. Practically everyone in her guild shouted. Wendy and Natsu can tell there was something wrong. Both looked at one another before nodding and turning back to Arena, but this time enhancing their hearing so they can focus on Lucy and Flare. They took notice after Lucy was slammed for the 30th time, causing her to cough a mouthful of blood. It was at this moment that Flare began to taunt Lucy again. How weak and pathetic she was. How she will be her little plaything for the duration of this match. However, Flare then dipped her voice into low whisper only Lucy would hear, but the two Dragon Slayers of Team FTA heard. That's a good pet. Don't fight back and take your beating. You wouldn't want poor Asuka-chan to get hurt, right? She taunted at the blonde, celestial mage. Inhuman growls erupted from both Natsu and Wendy's throats as their eyes turned into slits and in Wendy's case, became blood red. That bitch. They roared in their minds. Okay, that's it. No one messes with the cute toddler. You and Natsu need to do something. And I mean now before our sister gets beaten or worse. Roared and Wendy looked at one another again before nodding and began running to the stands, ignoring the cries of their teammates. It was good thing they did this, because Flare was now hoisting Lucy and preparing to brand her with the raven tail mark right above her guild mark. Like hell we'll let this go on. Shouted Natsu and Wendy as they reached their guild stand and got to Asuka before ripping apart Flare's hair, which caused her to flinch. Everyone, but Mavis and Makarov, looked confused, while the two masters glared at Raven Tail for their cheap plot. Lucis, now's your chance. Natsu and Wendy shouted. Damn them. Flare roared. Thank you, Natsu. Wendy. Gemini. She cried as the twin celestial spirits appeared and attacked Flare, allowing Lucy to be freed. Gemini were using that move. So transform into me. We haven't practiced that yet. But if you insist. The two glowed before fusing together and transforming into Lucy. In nothing but a bathrobe. Cue numerous nosebleeds from most of the males and some of the females. What the hell? Why are you only in a bathrobe? Lucy shouted at them with her entire face red from embarrassment. Gemini scratched her head sheepishly. Wendy just facepalmed. It's because of stuff like this, that Daddy believes she may enjoy flashing her body to everyone in the vicinity like a pervert. Still funny as shit he would say that about his own kid. Though evidence says it may be true with how much she loses her clothes. Back on the arena, the two Lucy joined hands and began a chant. Fairy Tale Ost. Mahu Tazen. Measure the heavens, open them wide, all the stars of the heavens. Lucy began. Overflowing with the light, make thyself known to me. Gemini Lucy said. Hibiki's eyes widened when he recognized the spell. That spell. She couldn't have. Hibiki said in shock. That's an impressive amount of magic. Ren commented. Using the Gemini spirit in unison has increased the potency of the spell. Eve said. Sugoi Lucy, you already able to use this spell without my assistance. You truly have grown. Hibiki said, proud at what the celestial mage could now accomplish on her own. The two Lucys continued to concentrate their magical energy among themselves. O Tetrabiblos, for I hold dominion over the stars. Complete thy aspect. My magical power is still not good enough to do this on my own, and even with Gemini I can only bring out a fraction of the spell's power compared to when I first use it against Angel. Lucy thought to herself. Flare was cowering fear. What the hell are you? She shouted at Lucy. However, Lucy thought as she opened her eyes to glare at her opponent. I'll show you what happens when you mess with my friends in my guild. Unknown to those two, the dark imp of Raven Tail got a sinister smile. However, things were not going to happen as anyone expected. Release thy malevolent gate. 88 stars of all heavens. Shine. Urano Maitreya. A gigantic, golden magical seal appeared around the arena as it was showered in a flash of light. Suddenly a second, crimson seal appeared on the first one. Immediately the fairy tale mages could tell something was off as the light began to wane and became unstable as Lucis' magical energy began to deplete rapidly. The dark imp continued to smirk evilly along with the rest of Raven Tail. Swoosh. Skleech. That died very quickly as the imp was impaled to the wall by a crimson blade of energy. They all looked in shock before a flash from the unstable spells collapsed, which caused Lucy and Flare to fall down to the floor. Lucy fell due to the drain of her magical energy and the feedback from her unstable spell and flare for the latter. Both contestants are down. It's a draw, shouted Chapati. The crowd was rather disappointed by the outcome, but nonetheless gave the two an applause for their performance. What an amazing performance. Wouldn't you say the same, Ujima-san? He asked his fellow judge. However, the announcer paused to see Ujima's dark glare. Ujima-san. Lucy. Wendy and Natsu shouted as they raced to the arena with Gray, and Urza not too far behind. What happened? Lucy's attack was perfect. Elfman shouted. Something suspicious happened. Mavis said. Someone tried to intervene from the outside. Makarov replied. Those dirty bastards. Romeo gritted out. Although someone seemed to stop them for our behalf. We should be grateful. Makarov said before thinking, was it you, Acknowledgia? Mavis had a huge smile, when she felt a familiar magic disappear. Thank you, Fishy Nichan. Ivan, are you trying to push us to an outside brawl, huh? Makarov gritted out as he glared at his son in the stands. Team Fairy Tail A made it to Lucy. Flare was glaring at Lucy as she got up. She was about to open her mouth, but glares from Urza and Gray, and two very murderous glares from Wendy and Natsu caused her to pause before scoffing and walking away. Hey Lucy, how are you feeling? Natsu asked. Lucy looked up with her face, moist with tears. Gomen, everyone, I didn't win. She said sadly. Nonetheless you did an amazing job, even when they decided to cheat for their own gain. Urza said. Yeah, you were amazing. Gray continued. So save the tears when we win the title. Natsu said. So come on Lucy-chan, smile. It suits you better. Wendy said, hoping to cheer up her sister, even if she didn't know they were secretly related. Family was everything in Fairy Tail after all. Blood related or not. Lucy gave them the biggest smile she could, which made her team smile in return. The team got up after Wendy healed Lucy's burn and began walking back to their stands. As they were returning to the stands, Wendy's necklace glowed, surprising her and her team. The necklace glowed for a few more seconds before it flashed for a few seconds, and then stopped. Wendy blinked before she got a huge smile on her face, confusing her team. Wendy, what happened with your necklace? Did it have something to do with your father? Wendy beamed them a smile before she nodded before saying that she will explain it tonight with the rest of the guild. The rest of team nodded before they continued on their way, all of them wondering what did Wendy's dad do. The next match was between Ren from Blue Pegasus and Risley Law from Mermaid Heel. The battle was hard fought, but the match ended in a draw. Ren was slightly disappointed, but perked up when his wife, Shelley, said she'll get him a big reward for his tough fight, making him get out of his depression. Everyone from Lamia Scale shook their heads, except for Sharia, who giggled at her cousin's antics. The following match was between Wave from Quattro Cerberus and Orga Nonagir from Sabretooth. This one got everyone to look on with interest. Orga was known to be one of Sabretooth's top members, while Wave was also considered one of Quattro's best mages and the current leader of the team. The question was who will be the one to be victorious in this fight. Oh, I like this guy's magic. Orga might be in for a tough fight. Sting said in excitement. Indeed, I remember hearing stories of Wave. The Black Knight against our Saber of Black Lightning. I wonder who will be on top. What do you think, Yukino? Dobengal asked. Yukino blinked when Dobengal addressed her as she saw Sting, also interested to hear her reply. I have also heard that Wave-san could handle several dangerous beasts on his own. I even heard the rumor that his armor was made from the remains of a dangerous creature, but it was never confirmed what it was. Some say it was a dragon and others say it was a demon or some other danger beast. The two men nodded, satisfied with the answer, although Sting looked a little more interested than before. Yukino wondered if Sting hoped that the armor was made from a dragon to give him a reason to fight and defeat him. She shook her head. It was not the time to analyze her teammates, she should focus on the fight. She turned her head when she saw Rogue walking away. Rogue-san, where are you going? She asked. I have no interest in this fight. He replied as he continued to walk away. Yukino was about to call him again, but Sting put hand on her shoulder and shook his head. Forget it, Yukino. The pretty emo boy only has interest in fighting Gajiel. Yukino looked at Sting curiously. Aren't you the same with Natsu-san? Sting just shrugged. I'll admit I want to fight Natsu Dragneel. But I know for a fact that there are several powerful mages that I'll need to face before I get my shot at Natsu. So I can wait a bit. He explained. If you two are done, you may want to walk up in front, since the match is about to start. Bengal said to his two teammates. The two nodded and walked forward to see Wave and Orga sizing each other up. Let's give it our best, Orga-san. Wave said politely. Let the third match start. Shouted Pumpkinhead. Wave grasped the sword on his back and pulled it to reveal his short, black sword. Suddenly, Wave began to release an enormous amount of magical energy that enveloped him in a dark blue aura. Orga and several others had to widen their eyes at the massive energy that Wave was releasing. Holy shit. This guy could give you a run for your money, Urza. No kidding, I never thought there would be someone like this from Quattro Cerberus. No, I can tell, his power outranks mine. In fact, I can tell he is probably just below Laxus in terms of raw power. Back on the arena, Wave continued to release his magical energy as a navy blue magical seal appeared just below him. Here I go. Grand Chariot. Wave was then covered in a flash of light that blinded everyone. When the light died down, everyone looked to see Wave completely different. He was now coated in a navy blue armor. The Black Knight, Grand Chariot. This is the first time I've seen up close, and it looks just like it feels amazing. Orga better take this fight seriously. Bengal said. Orga grinned savagely. Maybe this won't be as boring as I thought. Wave made the first move when he launched forward to give Orga a right hook. Orga charged a large amount of magic in his right fist in the form of a black orb. Try and take this. Black Thunderball. He thrust his arm forward, hurling the black orb straight to the armored team. The orb connected and exploded in a small round dome of black lightning. Everyone's eyes widen at this, especially for certain mages of fairy tale. No way, Lucy said. It's just like him. Grace said. The same magic as Zancro. Natsu said in reluctance, remembering how annoying it was to fight him. He's a godslayer. Wendy said. Black lightning. Laxus said with some excitement. I hate lightning, Lily said in a nervous tone. Hey, too easy. Orga said as he began to walk away, only for the dome to break apart with Wave standing in the middle with no sign of damage on his body. What the fuck? Orga was cut from his outburst as a fist implanted itself into his face and sent him flying to the sandy ground. It's wise to watch what you say, Orga-san. After all, we have children in the audience. Wave as he opened and closed the arm he used to punch Orga. Orga got up with anger clearly in his eyes. How the hell are you still standing? That black thunderball had enough to kill an elephant. My armor grants me not only enhanced physical abilities, but also limited resistances to elemental attacks, which means I barely felt that. Wave said even though inside his armor, his body was slightly aching from the attack. While it's true his armor does grant resistance to such attacks, there are limits to what it can handle. And elemental god-slaying magic was one of the few elemental magics that can pierce through that resistance. He had to do his best to end this quickly or he was gonna be fired, and not in the good way. Ready for round 2. Wave motioned to Orga, who now had 2 orbs of black lightning in his orbs. Orga grinned like a maniac, show me what you got, pretty boy. He shouted as the two dashed towards each other. Orga launched 2 black thunderballs at Wave, who quickly jumped up into the air in an impressive show of speed and strength. Orga pointed his semi-closed palm at Wave as he generated electrical energy. 1 million volt Vari. He shouts as a large beam of black and yellow electricity at Wave, who managed to barely dodge by flying into the sky due to the high speed of the attack. You can stay up there all you want. You won't escape me. He shouts arrogantly before firing several more volt Varis at Wave, who manages to dodge each and every single one. Suddenly the skies above darkened in color, making Wave look up with wide eyes as lightning began dance around the clouded sky. Try this. Black Judgment. Orga shouted as several arcs of lightning descended on Wave. The Navy Knight was forced to dodge the fast approaching arcs along with dodging the Volt Varus that Orga continued to fire at him. This went on with several more minutes as Wave continued to dodge all of the attacks that came at him from all sides with little to time to breathe. Ha ha ha. Dodge all you want, because sooner or later you're gonna have to stop, and when you stop, I'm gonna fry you. How long will Wave-san be able to avoid Orga-san's attack before they finally hit his mark? Chapati announced to everyone. Wave's eyes narrowed. He knew he couldn't keep this up forever before he finally makes a mistake and gets hit by the lightning or the beam attacks, and maybe even both. So it was time for a little payback. Wave maneuvered his body upwards before. Boom. In an impressive show of speed, Wave went sailing downwards like a speeding missile with only one target, Orga. Orga was covered in lightning before Wave's attack reached him, and then. Try this on for size. Grand fall. Boom. A massive dust cloud enveloped the arena due to the impact of Wave attack. When the dust finally settled, there stood Wave and Orga glaring at each other with Orga covered in an aura of yellow and black lightning. I guess that's your spell called Thunder Coating. Orga smirked. Yeah, punk, it is. Gives me increased reflexes, reaction time, etc. Now you won't be able to catch me. Orga said arrogantly before disappearing in a flash of lightning. He suddenly appeared behind Wave about to deliver a devastating haymaker. Had Wave not turned and caught the fist with both hands. What? Orga shouted in shock. Unable to catch you. I think you are mistaken. Wave said before delivering a hard fist to Orga's gut, making him cough harshly before Wave delivered a swift roundhouse kick that sent Orga back a few meters. Stop playing around, Orga. Wave shouted to Orga as he was getting up. If you don't take me serious, you will lose. Orga glared at the armored teen. Lose. I am Orga of Sabretooth. Defeat doesn't exist in my vocabulary. Orga said as he was covered in lightning again and charged at Wave, who responded with equal ferocity. The two collided in two empowered fists before following that with a flurry of fists and getting hit by each one. Orga's pride had taken a shot and now he wanted to personally take Wave down, up close and personal. Wave had little option, but take these attack head on and hit Orga with everything he had. Orga finally managed to push Wave back a few meters before bringing his hands together as a sphere of black lightning formed. 2 million volt Vari. Orga shouted as a beam twice the size of his 1 million fired from his palms and on a war path towards Wave. Wave got into a horse stance as he released as much magical energy as he could muster before he summoned a weapon to his hands, the sword form of Grand Chariot. Wave then condensed all the energy he summoned into the blade. The beam was just about to collide with him before Wave shouted, Grand Slash. Before swinging his sword down. Kaboom. Another explosion covered the arena. Oh. Another collusion between the two mages. What will be the outcome? As the smoke cleared, the entire audience had to blink a few times before they all collectively dropped their jaws. Why, you may ask? Because Wave, with no visible injuries, was still standing with his sword in the ground. But the shocking part was that the areas on the either side of Wave were completely scorched black from the Voltvari. Wave is still standing. And unharmed. What an amazing show of power. Why, you couldn't have, Orga said in disbelief. I have to say that was a rather dangerous attack. Had I not cut that attack, I would probably be out cold at this moment. Cut the attack. Does Wave mean he actually had enough power to actually split Orga's Voltvari in half? Chapati shouted. Wave chuckled as he stood up. He looked to see his arm shaking a bit. I can't hold out much longer. I can barely feel my arm after that attack. I need to end this as soon as possible. Beyblade Ost. Underdog. Wave then disappeared in a burst of speed that created a sonic boom. Orga had little time to react as he was hit by a right hook from Wave. He then cocked his left arm and closed his fist as it was enveloped in magical energy. Grand Slam. Before embedding his fist into Orga's gut, Orga coughed up spit and blood from the punch before he was sent flying back, tumbling all the way. Orga managed to stop and would have stood up, had Wave not appeared right in front and deliver another Grand Slam to his face before delivering a roundhouse kick that sent the lightning mage tumbling again. Wave appeared in front of Orga again and shouted, Grand Barrage. Orga was bombarded with countless punches and kicks that pushed him further and further back. This is bad, Orga-san might lose. Yukino said in concern. I wouldn't put him out just yet. Sting said. Indeed, this not the end. Do Bengal said. Damn, I wish I could fight this guy. Natsu said in a disappointed tone. Save that excitement for later. Gray retorted to the fire mage. This is a really insane fight. Lucy said, amazed at the armored mage's fighting capability. That wave guy would be a great opponent. Dark said to Wendy. Yeah, odd. Dad said nothing about some of these guys. Wendy thought to her other half. He probably didn't know about every single member of every guild of Fury. Plus he only focused on the guilds that had members that would directly confront us. Those being from Lamia Scale, Raven Tail, Mermaid Heel, and Sabretooth. Dark replied. Yeah, that sounds about right. Wendy thought as she refocused her attention to her fight. Wave continued to pummel Orga before suddenly had his arms caught by the wrists by Orga. Orga gave him a murderous look. You're gonna pay for that. He shouted before he began releasing electrical power from his hand and began to electrocute Wave, who screamed in agony from the electrical pain. By the time he stopped, Wave had steam come out of his armor due to the sheer intensity of the electricity used on him. Wave fell on his hands and knees, coughing up blood badly. Wave is in danger. Lubbock said. Give him some time. Bullet said. Come on, Wave. Agil said. Wave slowly got up. I'm far from finished, he said in a slur. Orga disappeared in a flash of lightning before Wave was sent flying. That is, he would have been sent flying if Orga had not caught his leg and punched him into the ground before he began to continually slam Wave down for several minutes. However, Wave would not take this lightly as he twirled around, which released him from Orga's grasp. Orga tried to punch Wave, but Wave ducked under the fist before shouting, upward slash. As Orga flinched from the sudden counterattack before he gasped as he was cut in the gut. Don't underestimate me. Grand kick. He shouted, but Orga held his ground before jumping in the air, and grasping his hands together as they cracked with electricity. He raised them before slamming them down in a double-handed hammer strike, but Wave barely managed to dodge the attack as a giant tower of sand rose to the air. Orga then came out and tried to get a hold of Wave, but was outmaneuvered by the armored teen as he grabbed the outstretched arm and flipped Orga and sent him flying, but Orga coated himself in lightning before he landed on his feet. The two glared at one another before both glowed in spheres of magical energy before they once again collided against one another. What an exciting show of power. Who will be the one to win? Shouted the announcer. Suddenly another explosion occurs in the center of the arena as Wave and Orga came out and landed a few feet from one another. The two were breathing heavily, but Wave seemed to be on his last legs. Oi brat! He shouted as Wave lifted his head towards him. How about we finish this with the next attack? Orga asked. Wave gasped as he tried to breathe as much as possible. He didn't have enough power to continue this fight any longer and he could barely maintain the armor. This was his last shot. He nodded to Orga, who began releasing a massive amount of magical energy. Everyone, minus Sabretooth, widened their eyes. They couldn't believe that Orga had this much power left. Wave stood tall. This is my last chance. If I go out, I'm going out fighting, he thought before unleashing a roar of defiance as his magical power was released. The two magical auras continued to collide with one another for dominance. Let's end this, Wave said in cold voice. I agree, brat, Orga said as he formed two giant orbs of electricity that were the size of Orga's forearms. Wave transformed his sword into a navy blue battle spear. He then began charging his magical energy into the spear as he began to be enveloped in a blue aura of power. Wave crouched on all fours with the spear in hand as the spear continued to collect magical energy. Orga brought his two arms together as the orbs became one condensed sphere of electricity. Now! Shouted Wave as he dashed at speeds that created another sonic boom as he was enveloped in the aura of the spear. 5 million volt Vari. Grand Slasher. The two attacks collided one more time as the arena was sent in a gigantic explosion that sent sand and debris everywhere. The smoke continued to bellow before letting up as two Soluliates can be seen. By the time the smoke it can be seen that Orga was still standing, but Wave was not. Wave is down. The victor is Orga of Sabretooth. Yeesh, he had me worried there a few times. Sting said. Still, the results of this show that we can't underestimate anyone. Dobengal said to the other two Sabretooth mages. Agreed. Yukino said. Damn, that was hard fight. Natsu said. Yeah, I kinda hoped Wave-san would win. Wendy said. So did I, but it was still an incredible fight to watch. Urza with admiration towards Wave's performance. Laxus smirked in excitement. Looks like he found a rival to fight in these games. Wave lost too. Lubbock said. It was a bad matchup. Agil said. Orga grunted before walking away. Oi! You had us worried for a while there, Orga. Sting shouted towards the lightning mage. Orga scoffed before walking away with Bullet going to the arena and picking up Wave to take him to the infirmary. Sorry. Wave muttered, but Bullet just smiled at the injured mage. Relax. We'll get them next time. He assured his leader before walking out the stadium. Now then, let's get on with the last fight of the day. Jura Nikis of Lamia Scale vs. Mistogan of Fairy Tail B. This got the attention of everyone in Fairy Tail. Mistogan was going out. That would mean this would be a battle between two mages that were recognized as wizard saints. Makarov hoped Mistogan could pull off a win, since this battle would not be simple or easy. The two mages walked into the arena until they reached the center of the arena. The two mages giving each other impassive looks. I must admit in my hearts I would like Fairy Tail to win, however, as a mage, I represent my guild and must give you my all. Are you prepared to lose, Mistogan? Jura said as he released a potent amount of his magical energy. Mistogan retaliated by releasing his own magical energy. To fight on Fairy Tail's behalf, nothing can make me happier. I intend to win, Mistogan said. Let the last battle of the day begin. Mistogan quickly unbuckles the belt on his shoulder before dashing forward. As he went straight to Jura, the staffs on his back began to float around him in an arc. Jura merely smirked as he lifted two fingers up as a magic seal appeared below Mistogan. The masked mage had little time to react as he jumped to the side as several pillars of rock rose up. Jura then moved his hand as more pillars rose up and all of them were aimed for Mistogan. Using quick maneuvers, he managed to dodge all of the incoming pillars. With a flick of his wrist, Mistogan's staffs all landed in a circle around Jura. Mistogan brought his hands together to form a hand sign. 5-layered magic circle. Sacred song. As Mistogan shouted those words, 5 magic seals appeared above Jura before he was bombarded with a powerful magical beam from the seals. Oh, he learned Mistogan's magic, huh? Laxus said, impressed at Jalal's resourcefulness. That's pretty skillful. Mirajan commented. Well, at least he's taking the blending into a whole new level. Gildarts said in a joking manner. Jura-san. Sharia screamed in concern for her fellow guild mage. Relax, Sharia. Jura will not fall that easily. After all, in my humble opinion, he's Fiore's strongest human mage. Leon commented. As if to prove his point, a giant rock fist came out of the dust with Jura appearing from the dust without as much as a scratch. 3-layered magic. Mirror water. Mistogan shouted as a magic seal appeared in front of him as the stone fist collided with it, and causing it to be sent right back to Jura. He sent it back. Gray screamed in shock. Awesome. Natsu hollered. However, Jura merely smirked before waving his fingers again and sent the attack right back to Mistogan. He curved it around again. Happy shouted. What's going to happen? Natsu screamed. This time the attack did hit Mistogan and sent him flying. So strong. As expected of a mage carrying the title of Wizard Saint. Chapati shouted at the top of his lungs. That's right, Jura. Hurry up and deliver the finishing blow. Send him spinning. Screamed Uba. She's spinning me. Someone save me. Shouted the poor random mage that she was spinning with everyone just pitying him before going back to the match. As expected, using someone else's magic won't cut it with an opponent like him. Even if the magic is from another version of me. I need to use my magic if I intend to win this for Fairy Tail. Shouted Mistogan in his head. Mistogan's eyes began to have a golden shine. This got everyone's attention. Meteor. Mistogan shouted as he was enveloped in a golden aura before he blitzed towards Jura like a bullet. Jura raises his hands again. Iron rock wall. He shouts as a rock wall appears in front of him, but Mistogan just dashes around it and lands a solid hit on Jura. Ha! Jura shouts as the iron wall breaks apart into several brick squares. He then maneuvers the rocks to attack the flying mage. Mistogan manages to avoid some of the flying debris, but some landed their marks and caused Mistogan to start falling back to the arena. However, instead of looking distress, Mistogan looked rather calm. I made it in time. He muttered, but Jura noticed something was off and he looked up to see a constellation pattern above him. A magic array in the sky. When did he have time to do this? Did he do it while dodging the attacks? Mistogen landed gracefully on the arena and looked at Jura. Be judged by the 7 stars. Grand Chariot. The 7 seals glowing before firing concentrated beams of energy of Jura. However, Jura was not deterred and simply clasped his hands together and shouted, Rock Mountain. As a giant armored titan of stone rose from the sand and took the attack as the arena was filled with dust and debris. Everyone was in awe at the battle that was taking place before them. It was like a battle between 2 wizard saints. Little did they know that was exactly what they were witnessing. I see. I now know your true identity. It seems that you were not completely frank with me, Makarov. Jura thought in amusement. I can't lose here. I must win for Fairy Tail. Jura smiled at Mistogen. It's been a long time since I've had an opponent like you. Perhaps it's time I stop holding back. Jura said before giving Mistogen a very ominous look as he released even more magical power. Mistogen and the audience's eyes widened as they felt the magical power being released by the wizard saint. Ho ho. Jura seems to be taking this battle seriously as he begins to release his magical power. Chapati said. It's been a long time since I felt Jura release this much power. I think the last time was during the trials of crowning a wizard saint. Yamaji commented. That shows how much of opponent Mistogen is to Jura. Jenny added her own 2 cents to the conversation. I don't believe it. Jura's power could easily be on par with Gildart's at this point. Makarov said. Holy crap, that's some power. Gajil in shock as he felt slightly intimidated by the magical pressure he was feeling. His power could actually rival my own. Gildarts muttered, though one could see the small smile of excitement he had at finding someone that could give him a challenge, and Mistogen also seemed like a good candidate as well. From this point onwards, Mistogen will struggle if he doesn't take this seriously as well. Mirajan said. Be careful, Jello. Urza whispered to herself. A magic circle appeared below Jura as rock debris began collecting around him. The debris collected around his arms and legs as a second layer of skin. 6 spikes formed on Jura's back, 3 on each side of his back. Rock magic. Iron rock armor. Jura said in a dark tone. There it is, folks. I never thought we would see this so soon. The power that gave Jura his nickname in the Wizard Saints, the Iron Rock Armor. Victory is now assured. Nothing can stop Jura once he dons his armor. Leone said. I wouldn't be so sure. Sharia said as her teammates look at her strangely. You think Jura could lose? Yuka asked in a confused tone. The fact that Jura had to use this armor means that his opponent isn't someone we should underestimate. Sharia explained with her teammates skeptical, but nodded to her knowledge. Back in the arena, Mistogen gave his adversary a critical eye. His magical power was incredible. The rock that surrounded his body were definitely not for show. His body was not only protected, but now will have even more destructive power in the physical and magical aspect. This meant that the kid gloves were coming off. Are you prepared, Mistogen? Jura asked. Mistogen responded by flaring his magical power as he was enveloped in a golden aura. Jura smirked in retaliation. Jura slammed his foot in the ground as several spikes of earth rose heading straight to the masked mage. Meteor. As the masked jumped into the air to dodge the assault. That won't save you this time. Thousand rock barrage. Jura shouted as an enormous seal appeared before hundreds of rock fists went after Mistogen. Pleiades. Mistogen shouted as 6 rays of light fell from the heaven and collided with the rock's fists, causing a massive explosion. However, several fists survived the explosion and continued their assault on Mistogen, and the masked mage was forced to maneuver around and parry several of the fists. However, one managed to get behind him and slammed into him. Mistogen grunted as he fell slightly down. He was about to destroy the rock structure before Jura appeared above him with his hands together and slammed them down on Mistogen's defenseless head as he was sent tumbling down before falling down into the arena with a giant boom. Mistogen! Shouted everyone from Fairy Tail, the loudest being Urza. Jura then commanded the fist to descend on the downed mage. However, before they could strike, all of them were destroyed by several blades of electricity. When the dust cleared, there stood a slightly beaten and bloody Mistogen with 9 blades of electricity around his back. Ju Lixing, he muttered. Jura just smiled as he descended into the arena. I must say I haven't enjoyed a battle like this in a long time. I must thank you for this entertainment. Mistogen smiled in return. Likewise. As he got ready for the next attack from Jura. Then let us continue. Jura said as a different magic seal appeared before him. Jura flicked his arms forward, but instead of rock, molten magma came out of the magic seal like a current heading straight for Mistogen. Mistogen and the rest of the audience's eyes widened at the spectacular feat, except for Lamia Scale that were just smiling in victory. Jura was finally showing his more powerful abilities. Holy! Jura summoned a wave of lava. How will Mistogen respond? Screamed Chapati. Mistogen acting quickly, he crossed his arm together and began to gather magical power around his arms as a magic seal appeared in front of him. Hey, isn't that? Natsu asked, recognizing the attack as a black sphere began to appear in the middle of the seal. Yes, Natsu. It's the same spell from the Tower of Heaven. Urza confirmed. It seems he has improved the delay to charge it now. Wendy said. Will it be enough? Lucy asked. Let's hope so. Urza muttered. Altaris. Misogen shouted as a giant, black sphere was launched, heading straight for Jura. As it traveled towards Jura, it began to absorb the lava in its own gravitational force. However, Jura smirked. I knew you could handle that, which is why I prepared 2 aces for you. Molten Rock Mountain. Jura shouted as another rock giant formed, only this time being formed of magma and actually enveloping Jura as the gravity sphere closed in. Mistogen was about to brace himself for the explosion when he was suddenly enveloped in a shining blue light. He looked down and his eyes widened when he saw a magic circle below him. Oh she! Rumbling MT. Fuji! Shouted Jura from his golem as Mistogen's attack made contact. 2 massive explosions enveloped Mistogen, Jura and a portion of the arena around them. Oh dear, Mistogen and Jura were both captured in the explosions. How will this battle end? Will be the end for the Iron Rock of Lamia Scale or the Masked Mage of Fairy Tale? Both guilds were worried for their respective members. When the smoke cleared with both mages standing on one knee each and breathing heavily. Ho ho! Jura and Mistogen are still standing. The match still continues, but for how long? Chapati shouted. Not for long. Both took heavy damage from that last attack. Not to mention all the energy they have used in this fight. I have a feeling this will be decided with the next attack. Yamaji said. Jura stood up in his tattered clothes, although his legs were shaking. I believe it's time we end this end fight. Wouldn't you say, Mistogen? Mistogen also got up with his cloak completely gone and his mask was barely hanging on. He needed to end this now. He looked up to give Jura the most determined glare he could muster. I agree, he said. Jura collected molten rock around his body like he did with his iron rock armor. Molten rock armor. He muttered. Mistogen began to emit a yellow and blue aura. Saint Seiya Ost. Pegasus. Jura, let me show you the true power of heavenly body magic. He said as he began to move his arms and body in fluid motion that entranced, but also confused the audience. Just what was Mistogen planning? Jura could feel Mistogen's magical energy steadily rise as he continued his movement. The power seemed to concentrate around his hands and he swore he saw the outline of a winged horse behind Mistogen. Not taking any chances, Jura dashed hoping to end this with his next attack. Mistogen then gained a glint in his eyes. Here I go. Pegasus Ryu Seiken. Mistogen shouted as Jura was bombarded with hundreds of magically empowered fisted that collided with multiple areas of his body causing to grunt in pain. His molten armor was ripped off his body. Mistogen felt his arms burning, but pushed it away as he continued to hit Jura with everything he had. The last fist collided with Jura's abdomen as he was pushed a few meters away from Mistogen. Jura coughed a mouthful of blood as he staggered from the attack. He looked to see Mistogen Aslo stagger due to the burns he received from the molten armor. Jura smiled at the masked mage. Well done, was all he could say before he collapsed to the ground. For several minutes there was an uncomfortable silence, before it was replaced with loud cheering and applause. It's over, people. The winner of the last match of the day is Mistogan of Team Fairy Tail B. He did it. Mirajan shouted. Never had any doubt. Laxus said. Looks like things are looking up for us. Gajiel commented. Grandma Uba has fainted, shouted a random mage from Lamia Scale. Well, I didn't expect that out. Leon with a shocked look on his face. Neither did I. Fairy Tail is really strong. Sharia said. Indeed they are. But that can be good for us. Leon with an excited smirk. Everyone turned to him in confusion and shock. How so? Yuka asked. Simple. This will make the games much more exciting for us. You may soon be participating, Sharia. So get ready to them your strength. Leon told the dark pink-haired mage. Sharia saluted the ice mage. Yes, Leon-san, she shouted as everyone just chuckled at her antics. I wasn't worried for a second. Natsu said. Is that why you were sweating for a while? Gray commented with a smirk. Shut it, Ice Queen, was Natsu's retort. It's a good thing he won, right, Urza? Lucy before she noticed that Ezra. The team looked around until they found her already down in the arena helping Mistogan up. You don't have to worry so much. Mistogan said. Bullshit. You have second-degree burns on your hands and parts of your forearms. We need to get you to the infirmary so Wendy and Perliuzica can heal you. Urza said in tone of finality to the discussion. Alright. You really are impossible to argue with. He retorted. Urza just giggled. When it come to you, any argument is null and void. She said. The two fell into a comfortable silence as she walked away from the stadium. As they were walking through the halls, Urza spoke again. Thank you for fighting for us and for the win. You were amazing, she said. Mistogan nodded. I should be the one saying thank you. He said. The walked-in content silence as the crowd continued to cheer. That's it for the first day of the GMG, come back tomorrow for the next exciting days of the games. Later on in the night. Everyone was now relaxing in their guild's lounge after celebrating their performance in the games. Natsu was boasting that tomorrow he'll participating tomorrow with Gajiel also going to participate to compete against Natsu. However, the stars of the night were Wendy and Mistogan. Wendy for her amazing performance in the games, and Mistogan for the hard-fought victory against Jura. Although the festivities were slightly ruined when Bacchus crashed in. He proceeded to challenge Gildarts and Kana to a drinking contest, which they accepted rather other tried to warn him of how much of bad idea this was, but he ignored them. Everyone thought that Gildarts and Kana were going to win this easily. So imagine everyone's surprise when both Kana and Gildarts are both knocked out drunk with Bacchus still conscious and still gulping another jug of alcohol. Everyone was in shock since they have never seen either of the two ever lose in a drinking contest. Bacchus proceeded to take Kana's bra as his trophy. Wakaba and Macau tried to attack Bacchus, but were easily taken care of. After trading some small banter with Urza, he left with the parting words, that Quattro Cerberus will not be holding back anymore. Now we have everyone, including Jelal, Mistogan, Ultir and Meridi, back at the guild's hotel lounge to discuss the events of the first day. When discussion came to Lucis' fight and the intervention that occurred along with Dobengal's words, all eyes turned to Wendy. Well, Wendy, you promised you would explain yourself. Urza said. Wendy sighed before standing up and making sure all the doors are locked and then placed several seals on the walls before going back to her seat and taking out another seal and slamming her hand on it. This caused the seal to glow with the other four as well. The seals pulsed for a few seconds before they stopped. Everyone looked at Wendy questioningly. Silencing seals. Making sure only the guild and the rest of us will hear this. Everyone nodded, but still a bit confused with all the secrecy. What do you want to know first? She asked, wanting to get this done as soon as possible. What did that flash of your necklace mean, Wendy? Lucy asked. My father made improvements to the necklace, allowing him to transfer memories to me and vice versa. Wendy explained. I saw how he was actually watching the games, but when Lucy was getting cheated out of her victory he attacked the same imp that tried to drain me of my energy, he then disappeared and you know the rest. Everyone nodded at the explanation, although impressed that the man possessed such skill with sealing and rune magic. Fried was taking notes and hopes to discuss with this man at a later point for some advice on his magic. We'll have to thank him for the assist at some point. Makarov said with everyone else nodding in agreement. Urza then turned her attention back to Wendy. Now let's talk about your training, Wendy. Urza said. Wendy sighed. This was gonna be a long night. What would you like to know? Wendy said. This time Natsu spoke up. My question has to do with something you said. He said. You said that your dad trained you in your Dragon Slayer magic. But that shouldn't be possible. Why do you say that, Natsu? Lucy asked in confusion. It's just that. Wendy's dad should not have been able to complete or even help with her Dragon Slayer magic. Not unless he had extensive knowledge of Dragon Slayer magic. And there is only one way. This got everyone's eyes to widen as they quickly understood what Natsu was implying. Why you don't mean? Lucy asked in a stuttered voice. Yeah, Wendy's dad is a Dragon Slayer. Natsu said before looking at Wendy. Right. Wendy sighed. Well, there goes skeleton number 1. Dark said. Yes, Natsu, you are correct. My father is a Dragon Slayer. Everyone was left stunned to hear another Dragon Slayer was out there, and this other Dragon Slayer was Wendy's father, which raised even more questions about the mysterious man. Another Dragon Slayer. Wakaba said. That makes, what? 7 Dragon Slayers that we know about? Macau asked. 8 if you include Cobra. Natsu said. Actually more like 9 if you include Aunt Irene, but I will not mention her yet. I'm not ready for that conversion and it's not my story to tell. Wendy thought to herself. Yeah, they don't need to know that yet. Dark said. How much should I tell them? Wendy asked Dark. Give them enough info on Dad and his background to satisfy their curiosity for now, then he can fill in about the rest. Dark said. Hi. Wendy replied. So Wendy, who was the dragon taught your father? Natsu asked. The dragon that taught my father was one that I can guarantee Igneel and Metallicana mentioned to both of you on more than one occasion. Wendy said, which raised some eyebrows on Natsu and Gajeel and confusion from everyone else. My father's dragon was the Black Energy Dragon, Thorin, and later on his mate, Saphira, the Blue Sapphire Dragon. Wendy said. Natsu's and Gajeel's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. Thorin and Saphira. Both teens shouted. Everyone looked even more confused as to why they were so shocked. Guys, why are you so shocked? Who are Thorin and Saphira? Lucy asked. They are the 2 dragons that Igneel mentioned all of the time. Hell, he made damn sure to drill it into my head to always know their names and their titles. Natsu said, with Gajeel nodding in agreement. I can vouch with Salamander's claim. Metallicana was the same way with me. Gajeel said. Wendy nodded. As expected. Our dragons would want us to know about the Dragon King and his queen. Wendy said. Dragon King. Everyone shouted. Yes, my father was taught by the Dragon King, Thorin, which makes him their heir, and my father the Dragon Slayer King, and the true Dragon King of this era. Wendy said. Well, there goes skeleton number 2. Everyone took some time to digest the information they were told. Wendy's father was not only a Dragon Slayer, but he was also the raised by the Dragon King, which makes him the strongest of all the Dragon Slayers, the Dragon Slayer King. It was a lot to take in such a short amount of time. Don't know if that make feel better or more terrified of who the hell I was actually facing. Gildarts thought as he was conflicted on how to feel. On the one hand, he survived an encounter with the Dragon King. On the other hand, he was terrified that Naruto beat him and the rest of my guild without even trying. Which made him pale as he morbidly wondered what Acknowledge's true power looked like. He really hoped Fairy Tail never became the receiving end of that power. Little did he know, Makarov was thinking the same thing. Now I definitely want to meet this Dragon Slayer King in person. Laxus thought in excitement. Like the others, he was skeptical about Wendy's boast about her father being the strongest of Fury. He heard her boasts in the guild months ago due to his enhanced hearing, but said nothing, since it had nothing to do with him. Although as he looked at his grandfather and Gildarts, he knew something was off with them. They had similar looks 3 months ago. He was definitely gonna look into that later. No wonder Wendy spoke so highly of her father. Natsu and Gajeel are already powerful on their own, and Laxus is above them without his Dragon Slayer powers, and with them he's an absolute monster. But that begs the question of what kind of monster is Wendy's father? Lucy thought with an understandable amount of fear. She had first-hand experience of how destructive a Dragon Slayer can be. So to hear there is an alpha that makes the others look like toddlers is rather terrifying. The more we learn about him, the more questions seem to pop up. Urza screamed in with an understandable amount of frustration in her head. Jello looked at his two companions in slight concern as to why they have never heard of this man before this. It was rather unsettling that someone so powerful was a complete mystery. Oh, if only their naive minds knew. Wendy, now that we know that you were trained by another Dragonslayer, maybe you can tell us about the training. Mirajan asked. I told you guys. It could make anything Urza has thrown at you look like a summer daycare camp. She replied. Although she could tell some of them still did not buy her claim. Come on Wendy, it can't be that bad. Lucy said. Her father couldn't be that crazy, right? Wendy just nervously giggled at them. Alright, if you won't believe. I will just show you. She then activated her storage seal to summon a slip of paper. Seeing their looks, she explained. Tu-san taught me some storage seals so I can have anything I'll ever need at all times. He even taught me some basic requip magic to have additional clothes whenever I will need them. She then showed them the slip with an intricate seal written on it with ink with the kanji in the center being memory. This a memory projection seal. It allows someone to show someone a particular memory to someone else. Dad gave me this in case I ever needed it. Though I wouldn't be surprised if he anticipated this conversation occurring. He always liked being ahead of the enemy and having contingencies for them. Wendy contemplated what memory she could show that won't traumatize her friends. Any ideas for what memory to use on them? How about the day before you took your trial to achieve Dragon Force? That is the one of the least brutal days you had with Dad. Also keep Dad's face a secret for now. So it'll be a surprise when they meet him. Good idea. Okay, braced yourselves, she said before slamming her hand on the seal. Memory seal projection. Suddenly an orb appeared above Wendy's head the size of a large beach ball. The image then showed a memory of Wendy and a man with a cloak covering her head. For the next several minutes they were all greeted to the entirety of what Wendy's training entailed for her. By the end of the memory everyone had turned a very noticeable shade of gray. Oh my god, Mirajan began. That W was, Lucy continued. Insane. Everyone in the room screamed. There goes skeleton number 3. What the hell is wrong with him, Wendy? Urza shouted at her in shock and rage. Wendy simply shrugged. That's your only answer. Everyone shouted again, which caused Wendy to wince from the volume. Guys, I know it looks bad, but it could have been worse. She said. How? They all screamed again. Well, I did not get any lacerations or gashes over my body. I didn't get my ribs broken or bruised or any of my internal organs bruised. I got no black eye, no busted lip, no dislocated or broken jaw. Oh, there's also, Wendy continued to list off several more injuries she could have received as the color of her friends drained even further until they were so pale white that they could be seen through. Wendy, stop. Everyone shouted. Huh? She asked before seeing the state of her friends. She blushed before scratching the back of her head. Whoops, did I go a little too far? A little. They shouted. This was seriously becoming a reoccurring thing along with the prolonged silence. Wendy, why are you so calm about all this? Your father could have killed you with what he did to you. What the hell was he thinking? Does that man not know about restraint? Urza shouted in outrage. Wendy sighed just knowing this reaction was expected. She warned them, but they wouldn't listen. Now she had to do some crowd control. Urza, my father was always worried about going too far. But I was the one that asked him to push me to my limit. And if that meant breaking me, then I told him to do it. She said with a tone of finality. This shocked and slightly horrified them. Why would Wendy go to this extent to train? Wendy, I don't understand why go so far. Lucy asked in concern. Wendy bit her lips as her hands curled into fists as she began to tremble slightly. Everyone got concerned when she didn't speak for a while. Wendy, Urza asked in concern. Because I was sick and tired of being a burden to everyone. She finally said. Her sudden outburst caught everyone off guard before they gained confused looks. A burden? Wendy. Why would she ever think she was a burden? What do you mean, Wendy? Asked Mira in a concerned motherly tone. She wanted to know why one of their youngest members would think so lowly about herself. I meant exactly what I said. I was so weak compared to the rest of you. All of you are incredible mages and yet I was always falling behind. I always ended up on the ground watching someone else do the fighting like a weak, helpless child. I was sick and tired of being the damsel in distress that needs to be rescued by everyone. And I was tired of being treated like a child by all of you. She ranted off to them. Everyone was left speechless by this. How long had Wendy been thinking like this? Hell, how long have they ignored the signs? But they never saw her as burden in any of the fights. In fact, she was one of the most important members to their teams and guild as a whole. Wendy, we never thought of you as a burden. Urza said. Yeah, who could have saved us without your healing magic? You're the best support we could ask for. Remember how you saved Urza when she was poisoned or when you helped everyone in the fight in Edalus and with Hades. Lucy also joined in trying to cheer the Bluenet up. Without her healing and support spells, many of them would not be here if it wasn't for Wendy. What good is being a support if they are knocked away in a few seconds? A field support medic that's beaten in one hit is a useless one. That's why I made sure to make my dad train me to the ground and break my limits. I made him promise he would hold nothing back and my dad had little choice in the matter. This got everyone concerned. What did she mean by that? Wait, what do you mean not have a choice? Urza with some trepidation. My dad swore a blood dragon oath. Wendy simply said. Everyone else was confused by this, but the faces of Natsu and Gajil paled white while Mavis's face got more serious. Oh shit, Wendy. Natsu said. Kid, you really were trying to get yourself killed. Gajil muttered in concern. Sure, he was an asshole most of the time, but he does care about his fellow dragonslayers. Even Salamander. Although he would never say that aloud. Everyone looked at the two dragonslayers, and got even concerned about this oath. What are you guys talking about? Gray asked, hoping one of the two would explain what's the big deal with this blood oath. But seeing the faces of the two, Gray and the others could tell it was something serious. A dragon blood oath is the most sacred oath that any dragon or dragonslayer can make to someone. Natsu said with Gajil nodding. If that person that makes fails to hold it, they are cursed in life and will endure eternal pain and suffering in the afterlife. Gajil finished. This got everyone to look at Wendy in shock. Her father went to such dangerous lengths for her. But what was her father trying to prove to her? Wendy, why would your father go so far? Mira asked. Wendy gained a small smile on her face. Because he wanted to show how sincere he was of being honest to me. Wendy replied. Well, that was some way of showing how sincere you are, thought everyone in the guild. Romeo then noticed something about the memory. Hey Wendy, I have been wondering where exactly are you guys training? He asked, which got the attention of everyone. Where were they training? Yeah, where are you guys? I never seen a place like that. Gray commented, since he never seen a forest or a sky like that in his travels around Fiore. The looks he saw from everyone else meant they thought the same thing. Wendy sighed, knowing the next outburst to occur. That is called the Bloody Forest. It's a place my father likes to go to in the Makai. 3.2.1. Wendy mentally counted. EHHHHHHH. Everyone shouted. 4 skeletons and counting. Dark shout gleefully, which made Wendy mentally sweat drop. What the hell do you mean Makai? Everyone shouted, asked Wendy. Said just scratched the back of her head. I meant exactly that. My dad opened a portal to hell and we trained there for 3 months in Earthland time, but in hell that is actually a whole year. Everyone's jaw dropped at that. Wendy had actually trained for an entire year in hell. Wendy, that was reckless of him, why would he take you there? Urza shouted, and received a glare from Wendy in return. Considering my teammates left me on my own for 3 months, I had little options in who I can train with. This caused her entire to flinch, realizing they had practically alone with no one to train. Wendy sighed when she saw the looks of her team. Perhaps that was a low blow. Guys, cheer up. I'm not mad anymore. I know it wasn't your folly. I'm just a little more riled up than normal. While it was reckless to some extent, my father knew what he was doing. Plus training there, helped me a great deal. Speaking of your training, can you tell us about shinobi training? Mira, happened to change the topic back to the reason for this meeting. Wendy looked grateful to the change in topic. What would like to know first? Wendy asked. Well, where did you dad learn to be a ninja? Natsu asked. My dad learned to be a ninja from his home village. It was known as Konoha, or the village hidden in the leaves. Wendy said, although everyone noticed how she spat the word, but decided to leave that for later. I never heard of place like that. Fried said. That's because it doesn't exist in this world. Wait, this world. Everyone shouted. Are you saying your dad is from Edolis? Happy asked, since that was the only other world they knew. Wendy shook her head. No, my dad is from a separate world from Earthland and Edolis known as the Elemental Nations. This got everyone's attention. They were about to learn about another world, so they leaned to listen on what Wendy had to say. What's it like there? Lucy asked. Wendy sighed, knowing this was gonna get ugly really quickly. Well, the world is broken into several countries. The largest of the 5 countries had the largest villages. Konoha was within Fire Country. Shinobi were the military force of the village and the country. They began training at very early age, like 5 or 6. Although my dad started late due to reasons. This caused everyone's eyes to widen in horror. Wait, your father was a child soldier? Mira asked in horror. Wendy nodded. Yeah, both of my birth parents were shinobi. It was a everyday thing, to be honest. Wendy, how can you be so calm about this? Why would they do that to mere children? Urza shouted. What heartless monsters would train children to be soldiers? Urza and several others felt this was too close to home to their less than stellar childhood. Urza, like I said, that was the norm in the elemental nation. Unlike here, war was a constant occurrence over there. Even when there was no war, all of them were in a Cold War standoff, even with their own allies, due to resources. Death, torture, massacre, invasions, assassinations, rape, experimentations, and any other Astro City you can think up occurred over there. And by the way, that age range I gave was normal protocol for peaceful times. During war times, it was common for children as young as Asuka to be drafted and then sent into the battlefield when they were half my age. Shinobi were expected to fight and risk their lives for the village they represented, and if necessary make the ultimate sacrifice for their village to obtain victory. Needless to say, everyone felt greatly disturbed and disgusted at they were hearing. Children being drafted into a war and to kill and being prepped to sacrifice themselves for their village. Bika held Asuka, who was asleep through all this, much tighter in her arms. She was horrified that children as young as her daughter were forced to kill and even die in a war. She would die before she'll let anyone do that to her daughter. Makarov was also horrified to hear this. He knew Acknowledge's backstory would not be for the faint of heart. So the idea of him being a child soldier should not be too surprising. But it was still a hard pill to swallow. Something he could see none of children have fathomed before. It had been since the last war was waged in Fury. So for people who have lived in peace for so long, war was a foreign concept. Is that part of what Dorganball meant about the dark side of being a ninja? Lucy asked quietly. Wendy nodded. Gods, Wendy. Why would you want to be any part of it? Did your father force you? Gray asked, only to get a very heated glare from Wendy that caused him to slightly flinch, remembering the day she came back from killing those mages from Raven Tail. My father did not force me into anything. I was the one who demanded to be trained like a shinobi. She replied. But why, Wendy? Why go through all that? Lucy in horror. Why would she willing go through all that? What did she gain from this? Because I wanted to understand my parents. I wanted to get an understanding of what they both went through, and it was my way of honoring them. For the sacrifices they made for themselves and for me. I owed them that much at least. She replied. For a while, there was pregnant silence between everyone as they digested what they heard. Natsu finally broke the silence due to curiosity and his own impatience. Wendy, I have one question to ask about your dad. What happened to his dragon, and does he know about the R's? His parents have sadly passed on a very long time ago. As for our dragons, he knows where they are. She finally said with some reluctance. Well, just to let you know, there are 6 skeletons blasting away. Dark cackled with Wendy, just sweat dropping at Dark's antics. There was a long silence as Natsu and Gajil were frozen stiff. Everyone looked in concern at the two dragon slayers. What? Natsu finally whispered. Wendy sighed. I said my dad knows exactly where the dragons that taught us Dragon L Sayers went to 14 years ago. The moment Wendy finished her sentence, she was lifted up by Natsu as he shook her violently. Where? Where are they, Wendy? Tell me. Natsu shouted at her. Gray and Gajil did their best to pry Natsu off of Wendy. Get off of her, Salamander, and let her talk. He's right, Flame Brain, calm down. Not until she tells me. Wendy, finally getting sick of being shaken, glared at Natsu. Natsu, let me go. I don't know. She roared as she shoved him off with Gajil and Gray holding him from grabbing her again. You just said. I said my father knows. He explained that he finally figured out where they were all this time. He told me to be patient and he'll tell me and the rest of the Dragon Slayers what happened to our dragons on July 7th. She explained. Natsu and Gajil both took long breaths as they let this information sink in. Why, you mean? Yes, at the end of the GMG, all 5 of us will know where our dragons went to. Natsu and Gajil couldn't help themselves as they began to shiver in excitement. After searching for years, they now have a lead on their foster parents. Many of the guild members looked in concern at the Dragon Slayers. The most prominent being Lucy, Levi, Lysina, and several others. The silence was interrupted by a scoff from Carla. And pray, how do you know he did not lie to you? She said cynically. She was met with a very heated glare from Wendy. I know he wasn't lying because that was one of the promises he made under the blood oath. Gajil then noticed something Wendy said. Wait, what do you mean all 5 of us? I was including the dragons from the 2 from Sabretooth. She explained. Wait, they said that they killed their dragons and as they became true dragon slayers. My father says that the dragons altered their memories for them to think they killed them. Dad says that it was to get them to be mentally ready to fight the real thing. And that worked spectacularly. Dark sarcastically replied. Well, that worked spectacularly. Since those 2 are nothing more than arrogant assholes. Natsu retorted. Ha! Wendy snorted at Natsu's quip and Dark's response to it. That is nothing more than the arrogance of the 3rd generation Dragon Slayers. They get instant access to Dragon Force and they think that makes them invincible. Wendy said. Wait, what? Dragon Force? Everyone shouted. Yetu-san explained that is the special attribute of 3rd generation Dragon Slayers. They have instant access to Dragon Force and can activate it at will, and it makes them believe they're better than the rest of us. But I can tell you that is a load of bull, since if you don't train to truly master the power of Dragon Force, then it will become your greatest weakness. Everyone nodded with that logic, since a mage needed to practice their magic at any moment they so could have complete control over it, and have all its benefits and 0 negatives. Stopping once you achieve your strongest power form will only lead you to falling behind in your magic and as a mage. Besides, 4th generation Dragon Slayers like my father are much stronger than those 2. Wendy commented. Everyone's eye nearly popped out of their eyes. He. I wonder if this will be the last skeleton. Dark commented. I really hope so. There's a 4th generation. Everyone shouted. What are the conditions for it? Natsu asked excitingly. Sorry guys, I'm not telling you. I promised Daddy I would keep my lips tight about it, except for mentioning it. Ah. Natsu whined, but didn't budge as he understood Wendy's loyalty to her father. So do we plan to tell those 2 about their dragons? Levi asked. Lucy shook her head. No way. They'll never believe us. They'll think we're trying to mess with their heads. Natsu just slammed his fists together as they were enveloped in flames with a huge grin. Then we'll just kick their asses and make them listen. Talkin' if they don't listen, punch their lights out. That's the fairy tale way. Dark said in Makarov voice. Hush you. Wendy said in amusement. Alright, I think that's enough for tonight. Let's head to bed. Makarov announced. Everyone nodded. This had been a long conversation and they needed to sleep on this info dump they got. Natsu. Gajil. Wait. Wendy called out to the 2 as she got 2 papers out and handed them to the 2 Dragon Slayers. The 2 looked at the seal curiously. What are these? Gajil asked. Wendy smiled. These are anti-motion sickness seals. They stop a person from getting motion sickness. So if tomorrow's even is on some form of transportation, you won't be affected. Both Natsu's and Gajil widened to dinner plates. They found a solution to their motion sickness. They finally won't have to be hindered by that stupid weakness. They quickly enveloped Wendy in a bear hug with tears falling down her eyes like waterfalls. Wendy, thank you. You are our angel of salvation. They shouted in unison. Wendy blushed as she laughed at their antics along with the rest of my guild. All right, let the girl breathe. Urza told the two with an amused smile. The two let go, but frowned at the seals. Wendy saw the looks and got curious. Is something wrong? She asked. Well, wouldn't this be considered cheating? I mean, technically we'll have an advantage. Urza shook her head. Not necessarily. I mean, you'd just be competing on even grounds with everyone else. I'll leave it up to you boys whether you'll use it or not. I'll respect your decision, Makarov said. The two boys nodded in acceptance and said they'll give their answers tomorrow. Wendy had discreetly asked if Laxus wanted one, but he rejected it, but told her he appreciated the gesture. Wendy then deactivated the seals as everyone began to prepare to walk out. Suddenly, as Carla was about to walk out with Wendy, she flinched as she clutched her head in pain. Happy noticed this and immediately came to her aid. Carla, what's wrong? Happy said, which got everyone's attention. Carla took deep breaths before looking at everyone. Nothing, she said, but Wendy narrowed her eyes. You're lying, she bluntly said, getting everyone to look at her. You had a vision, didn't you? She asked as everyone turned their attention to the white exceed. Is that true, Carla? Makarov. Carla reluctantly nodded. What was in the vision? Carla sighed. Well, Carla's vision. Fire swarmed every part of the land as if the gates of hell had opened up, and Armageddon had arrived. Buildings were crumpling to dust. The moon was red as blood and the skies were a dark crimson hue from all the smoke spewing into the air. The great castle of the capital, Mercurius, was collapsing to the ground. Hundreds of dark silhouettes filled the sky. A man with spiky blonde hair with blues and whisker marks on his face glared at the shadows. A darker shadow that enveloped the other glared at the man as lightning danced around the giant shadow. A hand can be seen being slowly covered in blood. Natsu and Wendy in rage with tears falling from their eyes as they roared in anguish. Lucy running as tears fell down her eyes. A giant gate can be seen opening as there is a flash and then nothing. There was an uncomfortable silence as everyone took in what they just heard. Sounds like things went from bad to worse. Freed commented. Laxus scoffed. You think? Wendy was in deep thought about the vision, something that was noticed by Makarov. Wendy, do you know something about this? He asked. Wendy nodded. The blonde man was my father. I am not sure about the shadows, though. I have an idea on the gate, but I won't be sure until I actually see it. Now that warning my dad gave makes more sense. She said. What warning? Wendy then explained the warning her father gave her. The one about the guilds, the impending doom that threatens their lives, and the suspicious activities of the royal family that seem to be connected to Zerf. Now this got everyone concerned. What was the impending cataclysm that was approaching that Naruto knew about? How did he know about it? How was the royal family involved? How were all the guilds and fairy tale involved in this? So many questions and very few answers. Carla was annoyed with Wendy's loyalty to her father, and yet keeps her in the dark about important events. Oh, of course your father is cryptic once again towards you. So much for trust. Carla said cynically. Wendy glared at Carla, her patience was thinning with her partner. Enough, Carla. My father told me what I needed to know. Wendy snapped. Everyone was looking a bit nervous between the two. Oh yes, and what about your mother? How much did he tell you about her? Or did he say he'll tell you eventually or when the time comes? Wendy glared at Carla for that remark. Her patience was at an end with her, and she could feel dark swirling in rage inside. If she made one more insult. Everyone was very worried. They could tell Wendy was about to snap, and were all hoping Carla doesn't say anything that pushes Wendy over the edge. They were all sadly mistaken. Face it, child. That man is nothing more than a deadbeat father that saw your mother as a one-night stand, and only came back to you as some sick form of pity. Smash. There was a dead silence as everyone stared at the smashed the table from Wendy's fist colliding with it and the crater that formed from the impact on the floor. Everyone was then assaulted with a very potent ki along with a malevolent magical pressure, which caused everyone to stiffen from the power Wendy was emitting. How dare you exceed? Wendy growled out. She looked up and the sight caused Carla and several others to slightly back up in fear. Wendy's eyes had become blood red with slits. Her hair was turning a darker shade of blue and dark whisker marks were appearing on her face. As she slowly trekked to Carla, the malevolent power growing all the more potent. Wendy began speaking in a distorted voice as if two people were speaking in an echo. You dare speak of my father when you know nothing about him or my mother, and you dare tarnish the sanctity of their marriage or his unconditional love for me. By now everyone was getting very scared at what they were seeing. They've never seen this side of Wendy and the majority did not like it one bit. Jelal and his companions very getting rather nervous as the dark energy that Wendy emitted seemed very similar to what they searching for, but there was something very different about this power. It felt more primal. And this terrified the three as this power felt just as frightening as the malevolent power they felt all these years. Maybe even more. Wendy was a few feet away from Carla when a giant hand gripped her. She tried to maneuver to no avail. She turned to glare at the one responsible. Makarov gave Wendy a gentle stare as she continued to glare and growl as everyone else was getting more scared as more dark energy was being released. Wendy, please calm yourself. She did not mean any of those things. She's just concerned for your well-being and has a terrible way of expressing it. Don't let her words get to you. I'm sure your father taught you to keep control of this power, did he not? Don't disappoint him now. Prove now that he had every reason to trust you. He said in a soothing, calm voice. Wendy's power flared as she continued to glare at Makarov. There was an uncomfortable silence for a whole minute, which seemed like an eternity before the dark force disappeared as Wendy's features returned to normal. Everyone released a long sigh of relief they had been holding since this debacle began. Wendy took some deep breaths before bowing to the master in apology, but Makarov waved it off saying it was unneeded. Wendy then looked up at the master. Master, I think it's time we all head to bed. Makarov nodded. As Wendy began to walk out, Makarov called to her. Wendy, I have faith that your father is trying to amend for his past mistakes with you. The fact he would make that oath and gave you that warning is proof enough. But remember, child, if you ever need someone to talk to, I am right here. Wendy nodded. Thank you, master. Carla was about to follow her, but Wendy spoke up, causing her to stop. Stay away. I would like to sleep alone and away from you for the rest of the night. She said coldly before she walked out and slammed the door close. Carla's eyes began to tear as she began to sob at how cold Wendy had been to her. She deserved it. Because of her attitude, she may have just lost her first and closest friend. Happy and Lily did to cheer her up, telling her to just give Wendy time to cool off. Everyone else looked saddened to varying degrees at the scene before them. Never thought Wendy would have such a temper. Grace said with a sigh, but Urza just shook her head. She's always had it. Her dad just gave her the confidence to bring it out. She said. But that was some power she showed. It reminded me of your Satan soul, Nei-chan. Elfman said. Mirajan just shook her head. While they felt similar, I can tell what Wendy was releasing was much darker. That was an unsettling thought for many of the members. Jelal. The brunette looked at Urza. Did that power remind you of the malevolent force you have been looking for? She asked. Jelal sighed before answering, it felt really similar, although a lot more primal compared to what I have felt. Are you suggesting that Wendy's father has a connection to Zerf? Lucy asked in fear. No one noticed the stiffening of Mavis, Gildarts, and Makarov, except for Laxus. He narrowed his eyes in suspicion. There was something going on, and he was gonna find out what it was. Makarov quickly regained his composure and addressed everyone. There is no evidence that confirms that, so we will drop the issue for now. We will keep this information to ourselves. Wendy's father gave us some information that can be very useful, so let's use it to our advantage. Jelal, you and your members can investigate what Wendy just told us about the royal family. Just make sure none of you are seen. Everyone understand? Everyone nodded. Makarov then walked to the still sobbing Carla. He gave a soft pat on the head. Relax, child, I'll speak to Wendy tomorrow and hopefully you'll mend your differences. Friends have fights, but they make up eventually. Just give her time. You'll see. Carla did not look convinced, but nodded all the same. Mirajan to take Carla with her for the night. Everyone left silently, all having many thoughts to everything Wendy told. The more they learned, the more questions they had. And the only person with answers was the person the questions revolved around. Naruto Marvel. Mermaid Heel Lodging. Thank you for your hard work, Sela. A red-haired woman stated to the beautiful mage bowing to her. Your words are kind, mistress. I live thanks to the two of you. She stated humbly as she stood up and walked out. The red-haired woman then looked at her blonde-haired companion in the room with her. So what do you think? Red asked. It was definitely Naruto. I never thought he would publicly appear like that again. The second said softly. You think it's actually him? That he has finally returned to his senses? The woman said in a hopeful tone. The blonde woman sighed sadly. I really want to believe so, but we won't know until we actually talk to him. I agree. Red said. Speaking of talks, when do you plan to speak with Urza? Blonde asked. The red-haired woman sighed as she leaned back on her chair. Soon. She said softly. Very soon. I will task Miliana to bring her, so we can talk. I have much to atone for. The blonde went over and gave her a soft hug that was graciously accepted. All three of us do, but we can only hope they'll find it in their hearts to forgive us. What about you? When will you speak to Wendy? Red asked. As soon as you speak with Urza, I'll speak with Wendy. Blonde replied. The two then walked out to their corridors. There was much to do and so very little time. Makai, unknown location. Naruto was in short-sleeved shirt as he was looking at 5 tubes filled with a glowing blue liquid. If one were to looking closely, they would see 5 human-shaped objects in the tubes. Naruto was looking through a magically powered screen as continued to go through different formulas and calculations. So far so good. He muttered. He walks up as he touches tube with his hand as he stares at the content. Hopefully these can be the first steps to the salvations of the dragons. He mutters. Suddenly there is a flash under his shirt as he receives the memories from Wendy's necklace. He blinks a few times before sighing. Oh Wendy, how I wish you never got my temper. You don't have to prove your loyalty towards me, my chibi Haim. Your love and compassion is more than enough. Hopefully you and Carla can set your differences soon. You'll need each other. I wonder how much Fairy Tail will be able to figure out on their own before I intervene. That vision certainly did have a bright future, but I'll die before I allow that vision to become a reality. Suddenly Naruto feels an enormous presence behind him. Naruto turns to see a dragon before him. It was around 70 or so meters long, although Naruto knew this was not the dragon's actual size. It had a large serpentine-like body. The dragon had 5 gray and red stripes going down its body with golden spikes protruding from the body and all the way down to the tail. The wings were shaped more like black tentacles with red, thorn-like appendages sticking out at the end. The head of the dragon had a golden arc on its forehead with a gold mask covering its mouth. The most noticeable were the blood-red eyes that was looking down at Naruto. This was Giratina, ruler of the Makai and the dragon god of death. Naruto bowed to the queen. Lady Giratina. Giratina's eyes seemed to soften, if only slightly. Rise, my dragon king. He obeyed without question. How goes these artificial creations of yours? They are stable and nearly complete. All that's left is to actually test them. Giratina nodded. Naruto, I wanted to inform you that I have finished my discussions with Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus on your suggestion. We have come to an agreement. She said. Naruto looked at her pleading eyes, hoping they agreed with his plan. You may bring them back so long as you fulfill your duties as king and perform your duties on July 7th. Naruto's eyes were filled with hope now that his other plan was backed by the primordials. He gave the queen a bow of gratitude. Thank you, Giratina-sama. You have my word. I will complete my tasks and fulfill my promises. I will not waste this generous opportunity. You have my word. He thanked her again. Giratina nodded. I know you won't, Naruto-kun. With those words, Giratina opened a dark portal and went through it to her throne in hell as the portal closed behind her. Soon. Very soon. The dragon race will rise again in glory and I will lead them as their king with my queens and children at my side when the time comes.